Call to order at 6:47. We begin, as always, with roll call. Alvarez is here. Bergman. Buba. Bluen. Katie. Bluen Matt. Broccolo. Brown. Bird. Caruso. So, Chow. Clark. He's somewhere. Cognado. Convoy. Conrad is sick. Cormier. Crooks. Nope, I don't know why she's on this list. Crowley.
Here.
De La Flor. De La Porta. DeVecchis. Electricon. Yep. Fiedler. Fowler. Franconi. Ghanem. Gopal. Hyam. Hughes. Johnny. Klink. Kugler. Kundu. Lavoy. Lim. Yep. Matthews. McNamara. Myers. Romano. Oh no, she's not a senator. Riff. Sargent. Seeley. Shane. Sponzo. Stern. Terpstra. Valverde. Vieira. Wang. Perfect. Oh, did I not call? Oh, wait, I missed a section. Second page. Ing. Patel. Patron. Gotcha. Perez. Porcello. Puglisi. Rana. Romanev. Oh, that's it. Anybody I didn't call? Rifkin. Yes. Yep. And we have to add ex officios. I'll take care of it with our minute taker afterwards. And all of the ex officios are here from what I can see. So, next, we move into public comment. Because I already know who's going to be recognized for public comment, I'm going to start off with Elizabeth Houston is here. I will recognize you for public comment. You just come up to this podium and say your piece.
Good evening, Senators. My name is Elizabeth Houston, and I'm a senior studying pathobiology. I'm here today to talk about the Kirkland M. Kerr Fund. Connecticut education has always been regarded as one of the finest in the United States, providing the next generation with the knowledge needed for future education, allowing innovation. Funding has been allotted at the University of Connecticut laboratories to research pressing issues. It has allowed Connecticut residents to learn more in the UConn Medical School, while paying in-state tuition rates. However, there is no in-state vet school available for pre-veterinary students here in the state of Connecticut. Connecticut residents lack access to this veterinary school that is available to 47 other states. In response, the Kirkland M. Kerr Fund was implemented in 2009 by the state government to secure spots for the top 5 Connecticut pre-veterinary students at Iowa State University. These students were granted in-state tuition prices under this fund. Governor Malloy has proposed cutting this fund from the 2016-2017 biennial budget. Entering the veterinary field requires years of preparation. An immaculate GPA, hours of extracurricular activity, and work in a veterinary clinic are required for acceptance. Once admission has been granted, a long career dedicated to the health of animals and humans who depend on them is demanded by these students. It's hindered by an immense amount of graduate debt. It is commonly misunderstood that veterinarians are provided with a high salary. In reality, new veterinarians work long hours for low wages. According to the American Veterinary Medical Association, the average salary for a starting veterinarian is around $67,000 per year. The average debt load, averaging both in-state and out-of-state tuition, is $162,000 upon graduation. which is about $1,200 per month paid over 20 years. Iowa State offers one of the most affordable veterinary programs. And for out-of-state students, that's $47,000 a year. The Kirkland M. Kerr Fund provides $20,000 a year for these 5 students. For the past 6 years, us 5 students are at the University of Connecticut and other Connecticut colleges have provided this preparation in order to apply to vet school. We have worked in veterinary clinics, we have taken our science classes, we've volunteered hours and hours at animal shelters and with our peers here on campus, and taken every step to become more involved. I personally am an ambassador for the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. I work in the Connecticut Veterinary Medical Diagnostic Lab here at UConn, as well as other research laboratories. I am in a variety of clubs, have a variety of leadership positions, work at my local vet clinic and the Department of Public Health as an intern. I have been accepted to Iowa State University in the top 5 seats. I received a very exciting email from the Dean of the College of Agriculture, Health, and Natural Resources about this acceptance, along with 2 other UConn students. Several days later, we received the email that this funding has been cut. We are required to commit to Iowa State University by April 15th. It's known that the budget will not be fully decided upon until June. Should I be committing to Iowa and this funding does not go through, I would be paying this $47,000 per year for 4 years in order to finish a higher education. This higher education contributes not only to the care of our cats and dogs and our other small animals who are our companions, but it also contributes to our health and well-being. It contributes to the health of the cows and the pigs and the chickens that we eat and that are on our dinner plate every day. It contributes to the health of the animals that cross state borders and contribute to infectious disease control. So it contributes not only to ourselves, but also to the public as a whole. Here at UConn, we value education, whether it be undergraduate or graduate. And as a woman in the STEM field who has been accepted into such a prestigious position, I hope that you guys can move to help me in the funding of the 2016 Kirkland M. Kerr Fund at the state level in order to provide myself and 2 other UConn students with the opportunity to continue our education at a price that is reasonable and a price that the state of Connecticut has promised to us in the past. Connecticut needs us as veterinarians in order to support the well-being of not only the pets, but also for public health, food, research, medical development, and homeland security. I thank you for your time today and hope that I can get your support in moving to fund the Kirkland M. Kerr Fund for 2016. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for coming and speaking, and I know that we'll be getting in touch with you to pursue that together going forward. Next, I know Chairperson and President-elect Convoy had something to say for public comment. Next.
It's funny, because I'm never nervous, but big crowd tonight. So, this is a letter from myself and also completely supported by the executive committee. Dear UConn community, this past week an incident has occurred that we must take time to stop and reflect on. The Rainbow Center's art show in our own UConn Student Union was vandalized. Crude sketches and comments were drawn on the Rainbow Center's display, hung up unframed. As USG, we fully support the First Amendment and the right to the freedom of speech, but we cannot condone such behavior and such actions as the ones that occurred this past Thursday. These were to be put on display for the True Colors Conference. And for those of you who don't know, this conference holds a soft spot in my heart and in a lot of other teens across the state of Connecticut. This is a conference that UConn hosts annually, and invites teenagers all across the state to go and learn about the LGBTQ community and to promote self-empowerment when facing adversity. For myself, this conference was the first event I ever went to that I felt I was at a safe space. It was the first event where I realized I wasn't alone and that there was other people like me across the state. It showed me all of the resources that the state of Connecticut had and also showed me how awesome UConn was for promoting such an event. This was the first event where, as a gay teen in the state of Connecticut, I realized it was okay to be gay. The artwork vandalized hopefully shows that UConn as a community still has room to grow. I know a lot of us don't always fall into the LGBTQ community. I myself do, but I hope this shows those of you who aren't part of it there is still some work to be done when it comes to inclusivity and acceptance on this campus. As a multicultural and diversity senator, the student development chairperson, the president-elect for the University of Connecticut Student Government, an openly gay woman, I am proud to say that I am part of an organization that does not condone this behavior. This sentiment is shared among the entire executive committee along with myself. As a UConn community, we should never be afraid to be vocal against hate and ignorance on this campus. In fact, we need to be vocal against it, or else how can we promote change and inclusion? The Executive Board of the Undergraduate Student Government would like to extend our condolences to the Rainbow Center, the True Colors Conference, the artist Rochelle Lee Smith, and anyone in the LGBTQA community that were offended or hurt by the vandalism. Thank you.
All right, next, we're still in public comment. Would anybody like to be recognized for public comment? I know that there's quite a few of you. I was going to let Tyler kind of coordinate you as he wished, but whoever would like to be recognized for public comment, please raise your hand. Go for it. Yeah. And then you can just kind of let them go.
Hi, USG. Thanks for having us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tyler Williams. I'm the president of UConn Students for Sensible Drug Policy. I'm the author of legislation that will come before you later tonight, introduced by Senators Bennett, Cagnato, and Domenico. And that legislation is a statement of support that we're hoping USG passes in support of ending marijuana prohibition. I was here at your caucus last week explaining the details, and I'll make myself available throughout this entire Senate session until you adjourn for additional questions that you may have for myself. So I'll make the rest of this brief. I, as a constituent, as a 8th semester history major who lives in Mansfield Apartments, I think that's all the constituencies, right? I asked my senators to vote yes as your constituent, and after that, we've brought more constituents here to express their feelings on the legislation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the people who've come out for public comment. Starting in the front row there, I think we've decided we're going to do the front row, the second row, and the people on the side. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. This is something that's very emotional for me and very basic on a lot of levels. As representatives of students and as students who care for fellow students, I think we should have two goals in mind. One, to keep people safe, and one, to make sure that everyone has access to education. Our mental health service here sucks. It's awful. I called them when a friend was suicidal and they didn't pick up. I called them again the next day, and they told me, oh yeah, you should try to urge them to come down and talk to us, not come down right now yourself and talk to us and we'll figure this out, which should be their response. While SSDP doesn't condone it, and we think, and it's very sad, people are using drugs to cope with traumatic events in their lives. Sexual abuse, you can fill in the blanks of traumatic events in your life. And It would be a real shame to treat these people as criminals who are dealing with traumatic emotional stress and suspend them or expel them from a youth institution, driving them further into depression, estranging them more from friend groups and people who could help them out, and farther towards addiction. So if we're looking for safety and education, we legalize marijuana, and we legalize it right now. And you guys could be the first legislature to legalize marijuana in Connecticut. The tides are going this way, and this could be a very progressive, safe, educational move for all of you to make. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Will Schumacher. I'm an NRE major, I'm a freshman. And I believe that we should legalize marijuana for the recreational use because it's just the right thing to do. People are being put in jail and there's just no sense in it. And if UConn passes a statement that supports it, the state has to pay attention because we are its flagship school. So if you do support this, then this is a great way to help it get passed. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ian Fignell. I'm a sophomore, majoring in political science in the honors program. I live in Connecticut Commons, so whoever's here for me today, Connecticut Commons, I'm looking at you. I just wanted to briefly discuss two important facts. The first one is the Quinnipiac poll released this morning for 2015. Over the past year, support for legalizing recreational marijuana, has increased by 10% in 1 year, from 53% to 63%. So the state overwhelmingly supports the legalization of recreational use. And when you look at the generational gap, I think it's safe to say what side college students are on, what side your constituents are on. The second thing I want to discuss with you was the money made in the first 18 months after Colorado established a regulated and taxed system. $184 million. And some of you might see dollar signs, some of you might see nice math. What I see is education in Connecticut not being slashed. I went down to Hartford and testified against the 2016 fiscal budget proposed by Malloy, and if we had legalized marijuana and we had the revenue that it would bring, then we wouldn't have to be debating things like taking away the flagship universities' money. I think this is a common sense move. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Borick. My major is psychology. I'm a sophomore. I live in Garriga Suites, and I would like to, on all basic levels, just show my support for the legalization of marijuana. I've seen many people's lives ruined over small amounts that would not hurt anybody. Not that marijuana really would hurt anybody, but yeah, thank you.
Hello, USG Senators. My name is Jennifer Purdon. My major is Health and Wellness through Music through the Individualized Program, as well as Psychology. I'm a sophomore, and I live in Sprague Hall, so East Campus. And I would like to ask my senators in USG to please support the statement of position concerning legalizing marijuana, because marijuana is a much better alternative, in my opinion, to opiate and opioid drugs for people with pain problems. And the addiction rates for these pills are extremely high. And I've personally been affected by family members who have developed addictions to these chemicals and watched them destroy their lives because they're not able to get medical marijuana, because currently the laws are so restricting in Connecticut for people who are trying to get medical marijuana. So I urge you to please pass the statement of position so that we can move it to state senators. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Rodney Mosher, and I'm a psychology student here, senior year, and I'm here much like all the other 5 members of SSTP because I want my voice to be heard. I think that you guys should vote yes on a statement concerning the legalization of marijuana.
Hi, I'm Nadia Bokran. I'm a freshman. I live in North Campus and I'm an undecided major. And I think that you guys should vote yes on a position of statement concerning legalizing marijuana.
Good evening. My name is Matt Trujillo. I'm a political science student. I'm a freshman living at Towers. And as the senators of the flagship university of the state of Connecticut, I would ask that you vote yes on a statement of position concerning the legalization of marijuana.
My name is James Steele. I'm a math and econ major. I am a freshman. It should be, and it is absolutely absurd that you are more likely to have your life ruined by possessing marijuana than any sort of effects of marijuana. And I think that we should pass support for this legislation.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Thomas Dunkel, fifth year biomedical engineering major in the honors program here at the University of Connecticut, living off campus. In my 5 years here, I've been through a lot of hardships. Lost a brother to drug abuse, struggled with panic disorder, and I've seen one of my best friends kicked out of this university essentially for possessing a small amount of marijuana. And I believe these are all problems that I would not, or that would not be as bad if our state took a more progressive stance on drugs at this point. So I asked USG to please support a statement in support of marijuana legalization in Connecticut.
Hi, my name is Alex Borges. I'm a mechanical engineering major. I'm a sophomore. I live in Northwest. And I think that you should vote yes on a statement of position regarding marijuana. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is George Dunnery. I'm a freshman majoring in molecular and cellular biology. I live in Watson Hall, which is in the alumni quad. And I believe that USG should release a statement in support of legalizing marijuana because the prohibition in the first place was just a foolish mistake based on groundless science, and the actual effects of marijuana are so insignificant compared to the lifelong changes that can happen if you get caught, you get into trouble. It ruins your life, and there's no need for that. And as one of the prominent public universities in America, it would make a big difference if we came out and showed our support. And as this Connecticut's flagship university, it's our responsibility to take this nation in the right direction. So please do the right thing. Thank you.
I'm a freshman majoring in psychology and pre-communication. I live in McMahon, and I would just like to say that I support USG passing a statement of position concerning the legalization of marijuana. Thank you. Good evening, my name is Zoe Mandisi. I'm a sophomore psychology major. I live in Connecticut Commons. I would like USG to pass the statement of position legalizing marijuana because prohibition is simply an ineffective policy that disproportionately affects members of our university. Thank you. Good evening, my name is Hannah Lerner. I'm a sophomore psychology major in the honors program living in Connecticut Commons, and I urge my senators to vote yes on the statement of position concerning legalizing marijuana. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Revan Smith. I'm a sophomore. I'm undecided. I live in Mansfield Apartments, and I strongly urge USG to support a statement of position concerning legalization of marijuana.
My name is Alex Dittmore. I'm a junior, a double major in sociology and human rights, and I live off campus. Pushing for a statement of position on legalization of marijuana does not mean that you're saying that everyone should smoke marijuana. I think that's a common misconception. If you pass a statement, then you're showing the state of Connecticut that they should legalize it. And through legalizing, those that want to smoke it have access to weed that they know isn't going to be laced, because that's something that does happen, honestly, quite frequently, and is very scary. And you're allowing there to be more drug knowledge spent. So please vote yes. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Nikki Chilinsky. I'm a communications major. I'm a junior and I live in Hilltop Apartments. And I'd like you guys to vote yes on the statement of position concerning marijuana legalization. Thank you.
Hey y'all, I'm Ted Jensen. I'm a honors junior computer science and engineering major, and I live in Garrigus. And I've heard concerns about USG supporting this on the basis that marijuana is illegal and that that would be irresponsible for us to support. But I think that's completely missing the point that the illegality of marijuana is unjust and it's harmful, especially to students who are all drug users. I see drugs on the table, on every table right now. Caffeine. So I urge my senators to support the statement of position concerning legalizing marijuana.
Hello, my name is Devin Keener. I'm an 8th semester communication major and I live in the Northwest dorms. I am not here to talk about marijuana legalization today, although I do think that would be a really good idea. I am here to talk about an act that is being considered by the Connecticut General Assembly. That is SB number 636, an act concerning affirmative consent. I do not believe UConn should support this bill because I do not understand why this bill would target college students. We know from the National Crime Victimization Survey that women and who attend college are less likely to be sexually assaulted than if they hadn't attended college. For men, it's negligible either way. 7.6 per 1,000 women will be assaulted on college campuses, and it's a travesty. But the rate is actually higher had you not gone to college. So my question is this: why colleges then? Why is this the testing ground for a new definition of consent? If this is a good idea, it should apply to everybody. Now, one of the things I've heard is that UConn already has this policy. But as many of you know, it doesn't seem to have done anything. We have a documentary on campus. It happened here. And it's ironic because it did happen here. And we had this policy and it didn't stop it. and the administration still let us down. So, I do not believe we should support this bill. Anyone has any other thoughts on the matter, though, I'd be happy to hear them.
Hi, I don't know if I'm allowed to come back up, but I wasn't aware that this was being addressed tonight. So, I'm Alex Dittmore again. Well, let's get to it. Okay, so I strongly urge you to please absolutely pass, like, be able to support the sacred anything, but I can tell you that, first of all, the reason why it's specifically for college students is because through the federal government, we are covered under Title IX. And Title IX, in case you don't know, is for those that are covered under the Department of Higher Education. Now, UConn already sucks really bad about doing their job. I can speak that through someone that was denied their Title IX rights while being sexually assaulted through a UConn program. I was denied my rights and not even told that I had them for 2 years. So, affirmative consent. It is not targeting cisgendered males at universities because cisgendered females are not the only people that are assaulted. It can happen to any body people, whether they live in different gender identities or trans. In fact, trans beings are 6 times more likely to be sexually assaulted than cisgendered. So, I'm shaking, I'm really nervous, sorry.
You're doing good.
Thanks. So, yeah, if that is even an issue and anyone has a problem, I understand that some people feel as though the cisgendered white male species is now being oppressed. Well, welcome to our world every fucking day.
Also, for senators, there's no swearing, but for public comment people, that was cool, so go for it.
Hello, my name is Kelly Morrissey. I'm a senior majoring in international relations and communication. I live in Hilltop Apartments, and I strongly urge USG senators to vote yes on the statement of position regarding legalization of marijuana.
So, is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for public comment? Seeing none. Actually, I'll just comment real quick. I thank you to everybody who actually came to express your views on public comment. I know how nerve-wracking it is to get up in front of a bunch of people you don't know and speak. It's very nerve-wracking, so I completely respect everything you're doing, and I hope that every member of the Senate takes into account the views of your constituents. Next, we move into an act concerning emergency funding for active mines. Are there 2 sponsoring senators? Senator Electricon and... Oh yes, she's actually ill, so you're fine as long as she's a co-sponsor. He's also sick. It's that time of year.
An act concerning emergency funding for active mines at UConn. Whereas the undergraduate student government is charged with improving the experience of the student body through funding of student initiatives. Whereas active minds at UConn wishes to bring a speaker to campus. Whereas the group wishes to bring this discussion of positive mental health and awareness to the entire UConn community. Whereas a result of the discrepancy that was a result of the mid-year treasurer changeover, they did not receive funding. Whereas the above-mentioned initiative has a high likelihood of success and bears clear merit to the student body. Whereas the above initiative is classified as Category A and is funded at 100%. Therefore, be it resolved that the undergraduate student government allocates $2,750 for the above-mentioned initiative for active minds at UConn.
Is there a motion to enact this legislation? Motion by Byrd, second by Porcello. Are there any questions regarding this legislation? Senator Fiedler?
I'd like to yield to...
Yes, you can yield to the
To
representative.
Abby or the president in the back.
wants
to
to
the
know
podium.
who the speaker is. Okay.
Also, can you state your name for the record?
Yes. Hi, I'm Abigail. I'm the development coordinator of Active Minds. Just saying that our aim on campus is to reduce the stigma behind mental health. We are trying to bring a general mental health awareness speaker from Active Minds, Inc., which is the national corporation that we are a chapter of here at UConn. Her name is Maggie Bartram, and she talks on all different topics. She specializes in eating disorders, but not particularly speaking about that. It's just a general raising awareness speaker. So I think, does that answer your question?
I have one more question. That's all right, for sure. Second question is, in the, I understand there's a discrepancy as a result of a mid-year treasurer changeover. Was there an initial application for funding sent out, or what was the scenario behind that?
Okay, so our issue was we had a treasurer, to put it mildly, was not the most trustworthy person. We were not aware of this when he came into office. We had scheduled the speaker in September, applied for USG funding, and he had told us we had gotten it, and as our treasurer, we didn't question this. We, assumed that he had done everything that he was supposed to do. Come the end of fall semester, and he left the executive board with no word, and didn't say anything else. We got a new treasurer, only to find out this semester that he had never actually applied for USG. So part of the blame is on us for not following through with that, but we had just assumed he was on the e-board. We didn't think that somebody would possibly lie about applying to USG funding, so that is the discrepancy.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions regarding this legislation? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any debate regarding the legislation? Seeing none, all those in favor of enacting an act concerning emergency funding for Active Minds, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? Clearly passes. Congratulations. Next, we move into an act concerning emergency funding for the Family Studies Undergraduate Committee. Are there two sponsoring senators, Senator Brocolo and Senator Bergman? You are so recognized.
An act concerning emergency funding for the Family Studies Undergraduate Committee. Whereas the undergraduate student government is charged with improving the experiences of all undergraduate students. Whereas the Family Studies Undergraduate Committee is requesting money to pay for a UConn catering and a career night they are planning. Whereas this group has not received funding from USG because they were not expecting to hold this event. Whereas this shows clear merit to the student body. Whereas a total of 15 professionals and graduate students will be attending this event on April 8, 2015. Whereas this is an on-campus event and will be advertised to any student who wishes to attend, so subject to 100% funding. Whereas the FSUC is requesting $435 to pay for UConn catering. Whereas without funds to pay for catering, the event will not be held. Therefore, be it resolved, the undergraduate student government allocates a total of $435 to FSUC.
Is there a motion to enact this legislation? I'll give the motion to Porcello, the second to Lavoie. Are there any questions regarding this legislation? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any debate regarding this legislation? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of enacting an act concerning emergency funding for the Family Studies Undergraduate Committee, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? Clearly passes. All right, now we go into approval of the minutes. The first one, approval of the minutes from February 11th, 2015. Also, all of these were sent out to you for review. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from February 11th? Or actually, yeah, February 11th. Motion by Wang, second by Convoy. Are there any questions regarding the minutes? Is there any debate? Seeing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes from February 11th, 2015, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Abstentions? Clearly passes. Next, we move into approval of the minutes from February 18th, 2015. Is there a motion? Motion by Lewin, second by Myers. Are there any questions regarding the minutes? Seeing none, is there any debate? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes from February 18th, 2015, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Say aye with gumption. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. There we are. All opposed? Abstentions? 4 abstentions. Clearly passes. Next, we move into approval of minutes from February 25th, 2015. Is there a motion? Motion by Wang, second by Sponzo. Are there any questions regarding the minutes? Is there any debate? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes from February 25th, 2015, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 abstentions. Clearly passes. All right, next we move into reports of the executive. Report of the President Sergeant. Did he just leave the room? Okay, so we move into the report of the Vice President. Vice President Romano.
So I'll try to keep my report really short. Just a reminder, please fill out the kudos form. We actually have real kudos to give out. The second thing is that office hours will be enforced. So for those of you who have not been doing your office hour, remember it's 1 hour per week that you have to be in the office doing specifically USG related work. Those will be enforced, and I'll be emailing you if you're not signing in. We'll have a sheet in there where you actually have to check off your name. The last thing I want to talk about is COSGA, that we will be presenting on April 1st during caucus. We'll have a nice PowerPoint for you. We'll try to make everything as concise and detailed as possible, try to get that done. And in the meantime, though, if you have any questions about anything we did or you're interested about anything, please feel free to talk to any of us. And one thing I just want to share with people that I personally learned at COSGA is they talked a lot about why people join student government and what people value, and I just want to remind everybody, something that I took away is that we are all here for the same reasons. You know, we value the same things. We want to make you kind of a better place. We care about what students think. So I just want to remind everybody that, just to keep that in mind, that the person sitting next to you is probably here for the same reason that you are.
Are there any questions for the Vice President? Seeing none, we're going to move back into the report of the President, President Sergeant.
My apologies, everybody. I had to run to the restroom and I didn't know my reports were coming up first. Thank you all for being here, especially the members of our institution in the back. We appreciate when you take the time to come here and public comment. And I know some of these things are a little bit more formal than you expect, but again, we appreciate you getting up and speaking in front of our entire governing body. Today, I'm very proud to announce that we will be appointing our final ex officio member to this governing body. And Mr. Speaker, if it so pleases in this body, that I'd like to nominate Tyler Lemoyne to the ex officio position for the Rainbow Center.
Yes. Will the nominee please rise? Sorry, this is weird and formal. Does the nominee accept? I do. Are there any questions regarding this nomination? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any? Oh, wait. Did I do something wrong? No, I don't think I did. Is there any debate regarding this nominee? Seeing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor of confirming Tyler as the ex officio senator representing the Rainbow Center, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Abstentions? So confirmed.
Tyler, I want to congratulate you and all the members of each cultural center, and I'm so pleased to finally see that we have the representation from every single cultural center here. I don't think that's happened in recent history in USG, and I think it's a step in the right direction that we can start these conversations and facilitate a better UConn community. So welcome to our body. Next, I'd like to again recognize Elizabeth Houston for getting up and speaking during public comment. I think this is a true testament to our job as members of this organization to fight for our constituents. So I recommend all of you who live within the state of Connecticut to speak to your representatives and fight for her cause. Some minor appointments and just logistical things. I'm currently following up with UCTV about their advertising video for USG. It was put on hold last semester and it's been going on for quite some time, but we'll be able to get the advertising video out as soon as possible. I spoke with Gail Garber and Chairperson Kugler from External Affairs regarding the testifying at the Capitol for safe nurses and the second Board of Trustees represented for the undergraduates. I'm sure he will go into more detail about that during his report. And I wanted to make sure that things are going well. I wasn't here last Senate, so I didn't get a chance to report on University Senate. I went with several delegates from this body to talk about FY16 and FY17 for the university. Provost Troy talked about it, and we had presentations from the Scholastic Standards Committee and the Diversity Committee. My final point is, as we go into the spring break, I hope that you find some time to relax, finish up your midterms that we do, but be sure that we have 6 weeks left when we come back next semester. And this is going to be hopefully the most productive Senate body that this campus has ever seen. I'll be sure of that. So I'm excited for us when we come back to hit the ground running. And with that, I'll yield the floor back to the Speaker.
Are there any questions for the President? Seeing none, we move into the report of. You're welcome. We move into a report of the Comptroller. Comptroller Rana.
So just a few things to go over that's been going on in the past couple of weeks and what's going to be going on going forward. So we pulled the reports of our expenditures since the beginning of December, and each of the committees have relatively been using their funds healthfully. I wouldn't say anyone is below amounts considered. If you want the complete breakdown, Academic Affairs has used about 30% of their funds, the Executive Committee has used about 25% of their funds, External Affairs has used about 14% of their funds, Funding Board has used about 53% of their funds, Student Development has allocated about 61% of their funds. Student Services hasn't used much of their funds right now. We understand that because most of it's going towards Student Appreciation Day, so that'll probably happen after spring break. And then USG General, which is our wages and all that, sees about 45% being used. So we're about halfway through the semester, 7 or 8 weeks in. So the numbers are looking pretty good, and then I'll have a more updated, a little pretty chart like Claire used to do for us next time. Another thing, I know this might be a little bit unprofessional, but happy anniversary to my lovely girlfriend, Gayatri. So CASGA, a couple things with that is, 1 delay, 3 layovers, and 2 cancellations later, we were still able to make it for about 2 days of the conference itself. I think every single one of the delegates deserve a round of applause for handling it so well. I've never been to something where we had so many problems happen so quickly and everyone handled it so efficiently. And I'm very proud of the individuals that we went with, and we'll have more information about what we did at the next caucus we have, but they really deserve a round of applause for what they did. The next thing is that the SFAC meetings, the presentations have already occurred for the GUF fee, the student activity fees, as well as the regional campus student governments. So onwards now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be meeting and discussing the actual content of each presentation to decide on whether or not we're going to make recommendations for fee increases or reductions for each specific thing. So those will be submitted. We'll be working on that with the other members of SFAC for the rest of the semester, and then over the course of the summer, our recommendations will be submitted. One of the things from CASGA that I'm going to start implementing or working on formulating is an actual audit process that will help to make sure that Tier 2 organizations are using their their student funds efficiently. And then the last thing that I actually want to do is, having been elected again for Comptroller, which I'm very thankful for, I wanted to do kind of like an anonymous form that I'm going to send out to all of you senators. I'll have the Speaker do it for me, hopefully. That'll kind of just be a general, how am I doing, or what do you think I do? Because I feel like there's a little bit of disconnect between what the senators might think I'm doing and what I'm actually doing, and I want to kind of get some feedback from you all as to what you think I can improve on for the next year, or what do you think I'm doing good right now that I can continue to implement. So yeah, that's what I've got going on.
Are there any questions for the Comptroller? Seeing none, we move into a report of the Chief of Staff. Chief of Staff Clark. Good effort. Strong effort towards clapping. But next time you should tell people beforehand, try to organize it a bit better. Sorry. Yeah.
Hello. The only thing I really have to report on is the banquet, which I have fought for you guys. The price is reduced now to $20 for one person, $30 for two, but I believe the rule still stands that it has to be, the second person has to not already be in USG. So if it's two of you from USG, $40. Because 20 goes okay, but it's $10 less than it was, so I think, and it's actually $20 less for two. So, yeah, I'm going to go over that again. So it is on Saturday, April 11th, at St. Clement's Castle in Portland. We are going to be leaving here, I believe, at 6. So that, I'll make sure you guys really know what time we're leaving. Also, be on the lookout, I think tomorrow, either me or Anna is going to send an email to all of you with a sign-up form so you can put in your name, whether you have food allergies, if you're bringing somebody, etc., and we'll have more information. But I believe the bus is leaving at 6 on that day, so there's something else happening on that day, I think, at UConn. But I don't remember what it is, but it's not going to conflict with this, I don't think. Wasn't there? I just want to congratulate John Myers, if he's here. He's over there, for putting on the Bark for Beer event, because I wasn't there, but I heard it was a success. So it's an outreach event, and it's something that we do, I guess, once a semester now. So good job, John. He pulled that together. So. All right.
Are there any questions for the Chief of Staff? Seeing none, we move into a report of the legislative, and it always surprises me when it comes to me, so it's my turn. How's everybody doing? First, again, I would just like to thank all of the students that came to speak during public comment. I know that this is going to be a long meeting and we do a lot of parliamentary procedure and we clap a little bit too often, but I hope that you enjoy yourselves at least somewhat during this. For next caucus, we're going to be going over, which is going to be on April 1st. We are going to have roughly an hour of that. We'll be dealing with guard dogs and the revamping of that program. Please make sure to get any constructive criticism or any comments that you have for Eliza to her within the next week. And then we're also going to be going over a report from COSGA and basically what we learned there and how to adopt more of those successful programs into our own organization. Once we get back from break, I'll be meeting with Dean of Students Ellie Doherty, and I'm also setting up a meeting with Dr. Gilbert. And we discussed in exec, one thing that we discussed in exec today was that for a lot of senators we'd heard that some of you may feel less comfortable speaking or feel like you don't get a chance to speak when we have these more lengthy debates. And something that Becca Herman commented on and that we all universally agree with is that if you feel that the environment in USG isn't what you think it should be or you think it is essentially not serving the needs of the student body, then we desperately need you to stay in this organization and to help us change that. Next, there will be, because I'll be reaching out over the next, after we get back from break again, because there's a week and I'm really looking forward to it, I'll be reaching out to all of the senators that were newly elected members of the Senate who aren't familiar with the organization. I'm going to have comment on those and any other member of the Senate that wants to reach out to those senators or senator-elects. Please let me know and we'll set up a meeting at that time with them. After that, and the last thing I believe is I will be hosting at some way, shape, or form, because I know Kaylee had committee boot camps, I'm going to be having a speakers boot camp, because for any of you who don't know, I will not be your speaker next year, because I'm not going to be in USG next year, which might make some of you happy, but probably not all of you. If you're interested in running for speaker, please talk to me. I will give you any advice that I have, any of my sage wisdom that I've accumulated over these past couple of months with you beautiful people, and my couple of years here. And the last thing I just want to say is congratulations to our new president-elect, Rachel Conboy, and I have the utmost confidence that they're going to do a phenomenal, phenomenal job.
Are there any questions for the speaker? If none, we will move into to the reports of the Judiciary. Chief Justice Blue.
Hands on deck.
Hello. Okay, this is really important, guys. So if you're in CLES, please listen up. And also, this goes to our guests, too. As you know, the 2015 spring election results are out. All the seats have been determined besides the 10th seat of CLES. There was a tie for the 10th seat between Kay Pritzker and Tim Sullivan, which means, according to the bylaws, there needs to be a runoff election to break that tie. The election is going to be tomorrow from 9 to 5. It's going to be on vote.uconn.edu. So if you're in CLES, please, please, please vote. We need this runoff election in order to determine who's going to hold the 10th seat of CLES. So I'm asking all of you tomorrow on Twitter, Yik Yak, Facebook, Instagram, whatever social media site you use, please notify people about this because we need people to actually vote in this. Yeah, so you do your thing. You all know how to use that, I trust. So again, please vote if you're in CLES. And this only applies to CLES students. It does not apply to the entire student body. Second, the Community Standards Committee has been meeting, and we're currently trying to draft legislation to bring to the Senate eventually. But what we need is, if you know people in Greek life or in organizations that have gone through community standards or student activities under community standards, please reach out to them and have them email judiciary@usg.uconn.edu. We're currently trying to find people who have actually gone through the system to get testimony on their experiences and try to reach out and say that there needs to be student representation on the sanctions board. So if you know people, again, please let them know. And if they want to come to our meetings, we meet at 7:45 in the SSC conference room on Monday nights. So let them know about that as well.
Are there any questions for the Chief Justice? Senator Gunham.
It's just between the two because they occupy currently the 10th and 11th seat, although they're tied, so there's no option for another candidate.
Are there any other questions for the Chief Justice? Yes.
Judiciary@usg.uconn.edu.
Any other questions? And if ever I can't see you, always holler, you know. But seeing none, we move into report of Academic Affairs Committee. Senator Bluen, or Vice Chair Bluen, will be giving the report on behalf of Chairman Lim. Like that tie, by the way.
Hi guys, Tim apologizes for not being able to come tonight. He has 3 exams tomorrow. So the Academic Affairs Committee held an event on Monday called Academic Affairs Committee, What's on Your Mind? And the event was a success, and we received plenty of responses when we did questionnaires, and we will hold a discussion this Thursday at our committee meeting at 6 o'clock. And we hope to have a draft of all the consolidated list of concerns for you guys to hear. On this open source textbooks, there will be an event on April 2nd run by the Provost Office to gather faculty and department heads. There, the Open Source Textbook Committee will promote their initiatives to hopefully gain faculty support. And we will be requesting the event hosts if we can send representatives from the Academic Affairs Committee. And then on extended library space, the University Masons have begun drilling through the faculty lounge wall and have found that there are multiple wires, which has delayed the project. But the committee will be checking up periodically to make sure that the work is going on.
Yeah. Are there any questions for Vice Chair Bluen? Seeing none, we move into report of External Affairs. Chairman Kugler.
Okay, first I want to extend a big thank you. I wasn't here at last Senate. Just a big thank you to everyone who testified on the budget. I actually just a few minutes ago got off the phone with the university lobbyist, and she's telling me how great of an impact we had when we went and testified on the budget, the presence that we had, the great job that everyone did testifying. She said it had a great effect on the legislators. A lot of people have been coming up to her telling her how great of a job we did. So everyone who testified, awesome job, and thank you for doing that. External Affairs will be back at the Capitol tomorrow testifying on 2 bills. The first one is the Safe Nurses Bill, That's to have the nurses who administer the sexual assault forensic evidence kits to make it so that they can go to accredited and licensed health facilities on college campuses so that victims of sexual assault don't have to go to Wyndham Hospital if they're at UConn. So that's a really important bill, and we are passionate and excited to testify on that tomorrow. The other one is the bill to put another student member from the undergraduate student population and another student member from the graduate student population on the Board of Trustees. So that is another bill that we're testifying on tomorrow. Anybody who's testifying, I know this is going to be a long Senate, but please stick around just in the hallway. I swear I'll be 2 minutes, really quick. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, and also look for an email from me because I know some of the people testifying aren't here right now. The last thing is that we have a movie night, our spring movie night coming up. The date is April 18th. It's going to be on the Great Lawn. The movie and the time, the exact time are yet to be decided, but I'll have that information coming soon. So please start spreading the word about the movie night, though, and we will be hoping for a large USG attendance at that event.
Are there any questions for the chairperson? First Senator Cognato, then Chairperson Johnner.
No, that's yet to be decided.
Chairperson Johnner.
Both are to be decided. Did I say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for the chair? Seeing none, we move into a report of the funding board. Chairperson Johnny.
Hi everyone. So for right now, the biggest thing that Funding Board is going is the budget application process for the upcoming semester. So we have created a new form. We are also having trainings for CFOs prior to the budgeting process. We hope that this will make it easier for them and easier for ourselves to review after they submit the applications. So we have trainings, one tomorrow in the SOC from 7 to 9, I believe, and then the other 2 will be when we come back from spring break. This gives CFOs an opportunity to go to any one of those 3 trainings. They have to go before they submit their application. And Parth and I are going to be doing this to outline all the steps of the new budget form. It's a little bit more simplified than we've done in the past. Hopefully that kind of pushes them to use all of their funds more efficiently, just because now you're not itemizing things ahead of time, so far ahead of time, that when it comes time to spend the funds, they are, your budget and your disbursements don't match up. So hopefully we'll have a less of a surplus. They're being put out on the 13th, which is the Friday before spring break, and they're going to be due April 1st, which is almost a week and a half after we come back from spring break. The other part of my report I just want to say is that COSGA was one of the best experiences I've had in college. It's a phenomenal group of people, and despite the fact that we hit every possible obstacle, we got the most out of it, and I'm very excited to present that to you guys next caucus, I think. The other thing is that Stephen and I did attend the Funding Board Town Hall, and I think it was extremely beneficial. We talked to a few groups, and the feedback that we got on the smallest things was very constructive. They were very respectful and just sincerely wanted to know more, wanted us to know what they were thinking, and it was great. So we do plan on working with Connor to set up a future town hall in regards to funding. Send an email out like we do for notifications for applications through Kristen Carr to all CFOs, Tier 2 CFOs, and I think it's going to be great. And something that Mark mentioned that I did want to comment on was congratulating all of the chairs, the new ex officios that we have, and the representation that we have in our Senate. When I went to COSGA and I was talking to a lot of the other schools, they do not have this type of representation. And I feel like we should give kudos to ourselves for having such a well-represented Senate. Yeah, that's all for my report. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the chairperson? Seeing none, we move into a report of the Student Development Committee. Chairperson Conway. We're just doing smatterings of clapping now. Yeah, strong work, George.
Alright, so try to make this fast. Spring weekend, we've been co-sponsoring with a lot of other smaller tier 2s or cultural centers that are putting on events, so that's really exciting for us. For our event, if anyone's interested in decorating a cake, it's completely free. It'll add promotion for your group as well as team bonding. Registration has been created, but we are not officially accepting applicants yet. We need a flyer. We also need a couple other logistical things to fall into place with dining services, but registration should be open the week after spring break. If any of you have been invited to ROTCs, take a walk in her shoes. Is that the official title of the event? Walk a mile in her shoes. I'm so sorry. Walk a mile in her shoes. Please like the event, share it, get everyone to go. It's awesome. This is a special spring weekend event that's happening. All the committees are trying to co-sponsor it by buying heels for participants to wear. It should be really great. We're hoping to get art up. More to come on that. For the task force, Irma is doing a fantastic job trying to get it set up. It's been a little bit difficult when you have a lot of really great students and then they all have completely different schedules, but it's coming together. She's really hopeful we get meeting right after spring break. We still have 6 weeks, which is perfect for our 2-hour-long meetings that will be public and in hopefully like a room this big. So that is to come soon. For a bill coming up today, we had a very productive conversation in our committee about it. It's the Yes Means Yes affirmative consent bill that we'll be discussing later and was brought up in public comment. And I'm really proud to say that my committee unanimously voted to support this bill. So student development will officially be supporting this statement of position on the bill, which I don't have the number out in front of me. And also, lastly, I didn't say this in the official letter, this is coming from me. As a student development chairperson, which deals with campus culture and pride as being a Husky, as well as the president-elect of this organization, if any student is listening who feels that it's okay to commit those acts of vandalism and hate on this campus, please come to my office and talk to me, because I think we should have a conversation. So thank you.
One for three, George. I know, I stole that from Parth, I'm sorry. Next is report of student services. Is there somebody to give that report, or just no report? All right, we're going to see no report. We're going to move into the fun part of this evening, new business. And we're going to start with an act concerning an amendment to the undergraduate student government bylaws. Is there a sponsoring gentleman? I believe it's Senator Broccolo. I said gentleman because I knew that it was Senator Broccolo, not to apply
I just gotta find it, sorry. Okay. An act concerning an amendment to the undergraduate student government bylaws. Whereas the previous bylaw, X Act 20, titled Programs, was inadequate. Whereas the proposed amendment to the bylaws is more descriptive, thorough, and clearly identifies the organization of USG programs. Whereas the bylaw review committee last year did not change the program bylaw and was deemed insufficient. Whereas the executive committee reviewed and approved the proposed changes, therefore be it resolved, the undergraduate student government adopts the aforementioned bylaw amendment. It was sent.
Yes, this was sent to all of you on Monday, and if we can go through, would people like us to go through it step by step now? Yes? Okay. So, take it away.
Me?
You wrote it.
I didn't write the bylaw. I was just a senator for legislation. I gotta find it. Yeah, I can yield for Tom right
Yeah,
now.
go ahead, yield
I
to
just
Tom.
wanted to find it on here so I can look at it.
I mean, I can read it all if you'd like.
Yeah.
I'll read it. Okay, we'll read it. Let's have some fun. Reading party. Okay, starting bylaw number 20. That's what XX means. Programs. Definitions. A. Programs shall be defined as, a set of continuing services created under the discretion of the undergraduate student government for the undergraduate students at the University of Connecticut that shall be beneficial to the University of Connecticut community. Governance. Sorry, I'm just scrolling. Governance. Programs must be formed and approved by legislation that is passed by the Undergraduate Student Senate. Part A of Part A. An allocation of funds must be included in the legislation for the first semester of operation. The legislation must have an addendum that outlines the operations of the program. Section B, Executive Director for Programs. The Executive Director shall be nominated by the President of the Undergraduate Student Government and approved by the Undergraduate Student Senate by majority vote. Responsibilities of the Executive Director for Programs include shall oversee the operations and financials of programs established by the Undergraduate Student Senate, shall facilitate the integration of programs into the greater undergraduate student government by internal promotion and networking, identify and develop co-programming opportunities with Tier 2 and Tier 3 organizations, interact effectively with peers in committee, Senate, and on the executive committee. C, committee structure. The standing committee which oversees all programs shall be called the Programs Oversight Committee. The committee shall be chaired by the Executive Director for Programs. All members must be nominated by the Executive Director for Programs and confirmed by the Undergraduate Student Senate by a majority vote. The operational overseers of each respective program shall serve as vice chairs of the Programs Oversight Committee. The vice chairs must give a report on the operations of the program. The committee shall then be filled with senators and other non-program affiliated members of the student body. This will not fulfill the mandatory requirements for senators to serve on standing committee as indicated by Bylaw 1, Section 2D. The committee shall meet at least once every week. Okay, programs, organization, and structure. The Programs Oversight Committee shall determine the structure of each program on a case-by-case basis. Each program must have sufficient personnel to fulfill the duties. Is fulfill spelled right there? I don't think it is. Isn't there two L's? Okay. By unanimous consent, I'm going to amend that right now. Everybody happy with that? There? Is that right? So, the duties of the supervising staff, a chief operating officer, sorry. I know, how fun is this? Chief financial officer and secretary. The duties, oh, I have a mouse. The duties of COO include, but are not limited to, general management, supervision of personnel, scheduling of meetings. The individual must also sit on the Programs Oversight Committee and maintain consistent communication with the Executive Director for Programs. 2, the duties of CFO include, but are not limited to, tracking expenditures, coordinating the production of the budget, entering expenditures into the USG funding system, liaising with USG bookkeeping staff as related to expenditures, and by maintaining consistent communication to the USG comptroller. 3, the duties of the secretary include, but are not limited to, keeping accurate and well-organized records. 4, position description for each supervisory staff member shall be drawn up and formally adopted by the Programs Oversight Committee. 5, the selection and removal process for the supervisory staff must include the Executive Director for Programs. 6, the Programs Oversight Committee may vote to remove one or more members of a program supervisory staff. Part A, input for individual members of the program will be taken into consideration by the Programs Oversight Committee. B, disagreements among supervisory staff members related to programs operations shall be settled by the Programs Oversight Committee by a majority vote on a proposed solution to the conflict. C, formal complaints from senators of the undergraduate student government and other members of the community may be submitted to the Executive Director for Programs at the following email address. Part I, the Executive Director for Programs must confirm the reception of the complaint upon review and report it to the Programs Oversight Committee. D, members in question must recuse themselves from voting to avoid a conflict of interest. I'm drinking water. Yeah, it's in there. Any internal structure or did I skip this? I don't care. Any internal structural or operational changes to a program, including changes to their founding documents or bylaws, must be reported to and approved by the Programs Oversight Committee. This is as fun for me as it is for you. Minutes shall be taken for all meetings by a USG minute taker. The committee shall be able to vote to enter an executive session in which no minutes will be taken to resolve issues related to personnel or in which personal information will be discussed. Minutes will be publicized and archived in the same manner as all undergraduate student government standing committees and Senate. E, program operational activity. The program may access the undergraduate student government resources to promote and advertise the program, including but not limited to the website for the undergraduate student government. B, all program supervisory staff meetings shall be held in the USG conference room and have a USG minute taker take minutes for the meeting. F, financial process. The program oversight committee shall be allocated a set amount of money each semester in the undergraduate student government budget under a headline titled programs. The set budget for programs shall be distributed into individual sublines titled after each individual program. C, the allocated funds must be approved by the undergraduate student government Senate within the budget presented to the Senate by the comptroller per constitutional guidelines. D, a USG funding system subsection must be created for each program. Or I, only the person performing the actions of a CFO of each program shall be granted access to the funding system. Or E, the program advisory committee shall then budget these allocated funds to best benefit the program. F, the comptroller and the executive director for programs must be informed of the expenditures above $150 prior to the use of funds. G, the executive director for programs shall deliver a formal report of each program, including budget updates of the executive committee to the undergraduate student government and undergraduate student senate as needed. Is there a motion to enact this legislation? What?
The section goes in the financial process, so it's section 8, and it should be changed to advisory oversight.
By unanimous consent? Yeah, capitalize it. All right, so is there a motion to enact this legislation? Motion by Lavoie, second by Kugler. Are there any questions regarding this legislation? First is Porcello, then is Electric. And then Mignato. Oh, wait, hold on. Raise your hands again. I got Porcello, Electricon, Cognato, Cormier, Bergman. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I have it, yeah.
So I have two questions, they're quick. Question number one is, so does this bylaw amendment pretty much make programs a committee like the other standing committees in the USG?
Yes, essentially.
So my question is, why does serving on it not count as a senator? I'm just wondering why, like, that was, everything else is now being made like a normal standing committee, but then it said, but this won't fulfill your constitutional requirement. So I just wonder why.
Because as it stands, we thought that it was more appropriate within the bylaw review committee. I'll yield to Convoy.
I suggested that because a lot of other schools get absorbed into programs as programs develop, but I want to make sure you guys can advocacy forefront. And this isn't an advocacy group, this is an oversight.
Like force people to still do that.
Force people still in the constituents to do all that.
Thank you.
Next is Senator Electricon. Also, stepping out.
Hi, I'm just wondering if the executive director of the programs is on exec or senior staff.
To my understanding, it would be an ex officio position on exec. For senior staff this year, do you mind understanding? Oh, right now?
No.
Or in the future?
Yeah.
In the future, I would hope that would be an ex officio position.
Never mind. Also, what's the difference between a secretary and an SSC worker? Like, what's the duties of a secretary?
The secretary would be for the program specifically, so like with large logs, for example.
I know, if you're having your own committees, it says in the bylaw that they need their own SSC worker to take minutes. So what would the secretary do?
The secretary would be dealing with other internal matters as the program itself. So basically, the minute taker is there to basically act as another oversight sort of apparatus, and then also having minutes taken by a USG minute taker will also account for being on the record, so that way people in USG know and people outside of USG know what the program is doing. The secretary would be more of an internal organizing person for the program. So it'd be like, a membership director sort of person, essentially.
Next is Senator Cognato. Yield. Next is Senator Cormier.
Yes.
Next is Senator Bergman.
What do you think it's going to grow into that kind of like warrants having all of this like bureaucracy and like people added to it with official positions and stuff like that?
I'm gonna let Rachel answer.
I'll just say, so when we walked in as a programs committee, we kind of decided the way we're running programs isn't working. It's not working from as concept and as an organization, we agree that we're not doing enough oversight to, but at the same time, we need a way for it to still be a USG thing. Guard dogs were stopped because USG didn't do its job in managing it well. So this was kind of a happy medium where we still were giving programs a committee and some autonomy, but they are still required to report to the exec committee, and USG will still be notified of all changes, be able to manage that. The reason for all the bureaucracy is because in the future, we're realistically probably going to add more programs. We might take away some, and you want to make sure that we have every single step laid out, so when that happens in the future, they don't need to edit the bylaws again, because it's all right in there. Does that help?
No, yeah. The other question I had, can I ask another one?
Go for it.
Okay, I don't want to take anyone else's spotlight. It's about the CFO and kind of why there would be a different CFO rather than having be the, like the executive director for programs. I'm a little uncomfortable with a program having its own, like CFO and having it not go to the person who is directly represented on the exec because of, funds, that kind of thing.
So with that, I would say that the CFO would be overseeing most of the day-to-day operations of the program and the financials of the program on a day-to-day basis. And the executive director would basically report the finances to the executive committee or to the comptroller and work more as an oversight factor in that, as opposed to having the executive director manage the day-to-day financials.
Right, I understand that, like, and then there's also the secretary who sounds like they're doing that also along the same lines as well. I'm wondering like how this works and
So essentially, the supervisory staff people or whoever would be adequate enough to fulfill those roles would be managing the day-to-day operations of the program or the program on that sort of level, and the executive director would be their oversight to make sure that they're doing their duties and they're doing their job essentially. So that seemed to be the larger problem with guard dogs before, is that when the executive director or when the guard dogs director was a member of senior staff, as far as I know from their description, there still was not enough oversight there that people knew what was actually going on with guard dogs.
so, okay, that makes sense.
Are there any other questions regarding this legislation? Again, if I can't see you, just holler. Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any debate regarding this legislation? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of enacting an act concerning an amendment to the undergraduate student government bylaws, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? 3 abstentions. Clearly passes. Yay. Okay, since this bylaw was just newly happened, now the president has to nominate a director of bylaws before we go into our next item. So by unanimous consent, can we do that? Director of programs. Did I say something different? Oh, goodness gracious. Forgive me. Director of programs. So ordered.
Mr. Speaker, if it pleases this body, I'd like to nominate Tom Matthews to be the Executive Director for Programs.
Will the nominee please rise? Does the nominee accept? Are there any questions regarding this nomination? Senator Pignata.
Okay, so I know there was like disagreement recently when we talked about programs and moving certain things around the budget, leave the bylaws, how to deal with some of those issues. But I was wondering if anything tends to be changed as far as communication between programs and exec as far as, I guess, I don't know, maybe my question was already sort of answered by bylaws being changed, but, you know, what sort of resolutions are we going to see that problem disconnect between exec and programs that we had last semester?
So currently, as it stands for the remainder of the semester, we have our executive programs seated as a member of exec. He's not a voting member of exec as it stands right now, but he's still a vocal member of exec. He doesn't have any voting rights. But if there is any disagreement, and there's to be an action taken on that, whether it be a budget or financial action, it would have to still go through the president, the vice president, or any member of exec.
Are there any other questions regarding this nomination? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any debate regarding this nomination? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of confirming Tom Matthews as Director of Programs for the Undergraduate Student Government, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Abstentions? Abstain. Clearly passes. Congratulations. Next, we return to the normal agenda. We move into an act concerning the Student Organization Center Creation Program. Senator Broccolo.
Hi again. So this is like a two-part thing, I suppose. So the Student Organization Center, or SOC as we know it, Program Creation Act. Yeah. Whereas the SOC is currently not a program, whereas the SOC fits a definition of a program according to Bylaw 20, law. Whereas in 2006, an act concerning the Student Organization Center recognized that the SOC was not being utilized to its potential. Whereas since 2006, while not being a program, the SOC has still not recognized that potential. Whereas under the stipulation of Bylaw 20, the SOC will be able to recognize that potential as a program and become much more efficient and better equipped to meet the needs of the undergraduate students. Whereas because it fits the definition, the previously allocated funds into USG General should be moved back into the program budget, whereas this would total an amount of $60,000. Therefore, be it resolved, the undergraduate student government recognizes the SOC as a program. Therefore, be it further resolved, the undergrad student government reallocates the aforementioned funds from USG General into programs, specifically for the SOC. Therefore, be it finally resolved that USG formally recognize the space currently known as the Student Organization Center and use it to further our involvement in other student organizations and improve the resources that USG provides.
Is there a motion to enact this legislation? Motion by Byrd, second by LeVolt. Are there any questions regarding this legislation? Senator Gonop and Senator Pignata. Also, when you go up there, you can tip the microphone down because that feels like it's not working for anybody. There we are.
What do you mean by not recognizing its full potential? Like, what do you see as its full potential?
I understand how it came as ambiguous.
So in 2006, when USG took over the SOC from student activities, that was basically part of their legislation from 2006 that the SOC was not recognizing its full potential. So right now, the SOC does copies. We have the conference room, which is bookable by student groups. We provide chalk, storage space, and I believe poster paper. And I think that going forward, that the SOC can do more, provide common items that student groups can then reserve and take out, and act as more of a resource going forward. And also with the furniture that is in there, get better furniture so that way student organizations feel comfortable meeting there, and provides a better environment for students to actually want to go and use that space.
Next, Senator Pignata.
So I see a lot in the whereas clauses of like why we're moving it back to a program and how it wasn't, I guess, functioning as well, not being a program. I was wondering if you could speak specifically to what we expect to see happening differently as a result of the SOC being, officially a program.
Sure. So one of the things that we had talked about on exec and with the supervisor of the SOC, Jeff Santos, our student supervisor, is that under USG General, the way that, I guess, purchases work, or things like that, is that when she needs to make a purchase for the SOC, whether it be supplies or things like that, it's not very clear exactly where she goes to get that done. And as a program, it'll be very clear and have a very straightforward hierarchy of, you know, if we want a funding expense for more reams of paper or more chalk or any of the like, that she can come to the committee and the committee can mull it over and then figure out whether or not it's appropriate or not. And
So with with the SOC budget having $60,000 and currently being in consideration of adding furniture and all of that kind of things, moving it under a program would that lessen the amount of oversight that the Senate would be able to have over the spending of that money if we felt that there needed to be more oversight the way it was being spent?
So right now under USG General, there's quite frankly almost no oversight that the Senate has. But as a program, the Senate has the prerogative to basically determine its budget, which we saw for the other programs at the beginning of the semester. And under the bylaw, it gives the Senate a lot more oversight over programs, which would be including the SOC going forward. So with the financial process specifically, whenever there's an expense over $150 that would be decided by the program's oversight committee, it would have to be, you'd have to notify the comptroller, and both the comptroller and the president still sign off on those purchases.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for questions regarding the legislation? See none, we move into debate. Is there any debate regarding this legislation? See none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of enacting an act concerning the Student Organization Center Creation Program, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Abstentions? I abstain. Clearly passes. I don't know why we clapped for that, but okay. Next, we move into a statement of position concerning Connecticut Senate Bill 636, an act concerning affirmative consent. I'm going to call on the authors instead of the sponsors for this one because there are an aggressive amount of sponsors for this one, in a good way. But go ahead.
A statement of position on Connecticut Senate Bill 636, an act concerning affirmative consent. Whereas the undergraduate student government is charged with representing the views of the student body. Whereas the no means no policies in Connecticut place the burden of proof onto the victim to prove that he or she demonstrated sufficiently a lack of consent. Whereas an affirmative consent policy requires a perpetrator to demonstrate that he or she obtained consent at every step of involvement, thus removing the burden from the victim who may not have been capable of demonstrating a lack of consent. Whereas there is a culture of permissiveness and victim blaming surrounding sexual assault and harassment in Connecticut institutions of higher education as a whole. Whereas the undergraduate student body at the University of Connecticut are part of a larger community of students in the state of Connecticut. Whereas in order to change this culture in which students at the University of Connecticut are a part of, there needs to be a broader movement overall in the state that demands a shift from placing the burden of proof from the victim onto the perpetrator. Whereas CTSB 636, an act concerning affirmative consent, will require institutions of higher education to change their no means no policies in order to adopt an affirmative consent policy. Whereas the undergraduate student government adopted a charge on October 24th, 2013, stating that a need exists to improve campus culture in regards to sexual harassment, sexual assault, and gender discrimination. Whereas, although the law in itself will not change the policy at the University of Connecticut, it will be an important step in the right direction to change the culture throughout the entire state of Connecticut community to which the undergraduates at the University of Connecticut are a part of, and thus bears clear merit to the student body. Therefore, be it resolved that the undergraduate student government will be an active force for change of state culture by fully supporting an affirmative consent policy. Therefore, be it further resolved that the undergraduate student government fully supports the CTSB 636, an act concerning affirmative consent, and implores that it is passed through the state legislature.
Is there a motion to enact this legislation? I'm going to give the motion to Senator Sponzo. I'll give the second to Senator Alechikon. Oh, sorry. I'll give the second to Senator Bergman. I apologize. Yeah. Motion by Sponzo, second by Bergman. All right, now we move into questions regarding this legislation. Is there anybody else? Okay. First, oh wow, a lot of questions. Okay. First, new Senator Lemoyne, then Gopal, then Berg. Am I saying your last name correctly? Lemoyne?
Yeah, it's close enough.
What is the actual one so that I don't? Lemoyne? Okay.
With my constituents and most of my fellow students from like West LGBT culture, I know when we talk about victims further responses, you kept using he or she, which is totally great. I love how it includes both genders, but is there a way to make it gender inclusive so that includes gender neutral?
Yeah, that's binary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know how would you do that? I'm not.
I would just like really use like
they,
instead of like he or she, they or a person, so that way like
yeah.
include transgender people because there are transgender people that don't identify as
by unanimous consent, and we don't need to do, we might not need to do all of these right now, but by unanimous consent, can we change any instance of he or she to they, or an appropriate related term that recognizes, that does not recognize the gender binary as the only thing? Yes, or yes. By unanimous consent, so ordered.
Thank you.
Yeah. It'll be they.
When it makes sense.
Yeah, and if it doesn't make sense, a person. Yeah. We'll underline them now and then go back to make sure they're all changed later. Are there any other, oh wait, no, next for questions is Senator Gopal. Nope, you literally just spelled it as purple like a cat. By unanimous consent, can we change the spelling to the proper spelling? So ordered. Thank you, spell check. Next, Senator Berg. All right, technically, actually, here's a good learning moment. Technically, all of these would go into debate, but now, because they're points of personal privilege or whatever, so ordered. Good guy. Senator Perez, is your name also spelled wrong? P-I-R-E-Z? It's the word Daniel. It's the name Daniel. Nope.
Hey guys, just for the purpose of moving this along, can you text me or email me these, because we just wrote them down quickly from people who were passing by, so we might not have gotten the right spelling, so we can keep moving.
Okay, so
we can do this right now.
By unanimous consent, can we change all of the spellings or misuses of words to proper words by unanimous consent after we pass this? So ordered. Thank you. And now we'll make sure that they're all taken care of, you lovely, lovely people. Any other questions regarding this legislation? Senator Franconi.
I'm wondering, what your clause, it says, can you just broadly explain that a little more detail? The part about Brian perpetrator doesn't prove that he or she has any consent.
So the ways that the law stand now, the victim has to prove that that they, he or she, or whatever kind of gender pronoun you want to use, that they demonstrated sufficiently that they didn't consent to those actions, and so it's just the reverse. Whereas, like, I'm going to use Christina's, she's not here, example. If someone steals my purse, I don't have to prove that I sufficiently kept my purse safe in order to avoid that situation. So it's like putting the same kind of standard of proof on all other kinds of crime to sexual assault cases as well. And it's still the same burden of proof. I know that's usually a question that people have, like what if someone makes a false report? That happens very, very rarely. Statistically, it's proven. I don't have those statistics off my head. But it's
You can
also.
yield if you'd like to.
I can yield to Bonner. 2%. Okay, so 2% of the time is a false report even filed, and in the case that someone did file that, there's still the same burden of proof that like something in this act wasn't consensual.
So it asks the perpetrator, what did you do to gain consent, as opposed to asking the victim, what did you do to say no?
The reason why I ask, and this is a rather morbid story, but I was once told of a guy who actually had a female partner sign off on a waiver that she had given him consent, and then with that waiver signed, he actually needed to use her in some form. Not to draw into question any specifics, but I just want to make sure that that's considered.
Well, it wasn't considered when I wrote this, but I do know in those instances, you can revoke consent at any point during the involvement, and consent goes back and forth. You're never, the initiator goes back and forth, the other person has to consent. The roles change frequently, so at any point during the involvement, I think that is stated up there. At every step of involvement, they have to gain consent, so even if they did sign a waiver and were abused, this person could later say that, I consented at this point, but I did not consent at a later point. But thank you for that. Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions regarding this legislation? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any debate regarding this legislation? Senator, I don't know your last name yet, I'm so sorry. Sorry? Baritone. Yes, Senator. Yes, you are so recognized.
Okay, well, let me first say that I believe that all of you guys are, or not all of you, everyone's gonna make the right decision on this bill. Okay, where do I start? Concerns about affirmative consent. One of the main concerns is, as brought up before, false claims. False claims are 2% of all claims, and affirmative consent being played out, if someone was bringing a false claim to court, actually having affirmative consent would, then benefit the person if it was truly affirmative consent. So that just kind of fixes that concern for people. And affirmative consent, also another concern that I've heard people say is that it turns sexual encounters into a more rigid, like step-by-step process, and they say that can actually be played out. Affirmative consent is not suggesting that sexual encounters need to be made into a checklist of sort of things, but it's more promoting communication between partners. So that's what I have to say about that.
Next, Senator Puglisi.
Hi. Okay. So I think we pretty much all know where I stand on this, but I just wanted to say, in regards to the public comment that was made earlier to the young gentleman who got up here and said that we should not vote for this or support this bill, because the statistics simply are not there. I would like to say that he is misinformed. Actually, 1 in 4 college women will be sexually assaulted, and for every 1 report that there is, there's probably one more incident unreported, and that's just for women. As mentioned before by that young woman who came up here, who so eloquently spoke about this subject, that there are numbers of people who can be sexually assaulted. So I would just like to say that that statistic was wrong. College campuses are, not to say, but not a safe place right now for sexual assault. So yay, not yay, but please support them. Okay, please support this.
And to clarify, she did not mean yay. She's just.
I'm saying yay,
yeah.
We're gonna do the right thing.
Yes. That's just Cassandra, just to clarify. Is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for debate? Senator Myers, then Senator Cormier.
Okay, hi Senators. So regardless of what how you stand on this issue, I should have you know that I put a question on my Bark for Beer survey. Oh, you put it on there? All right.
Yeah. Is it like keep scrolling down? There you go.
Okay, yeah. So on my Bar for Beer survey, I put a question about just to gauge students' opinions on this affirmative consent. And as you can see, absolutely yes, garnered like a very wide margin of the votes, whereas people who are against, it's abysmal. So if you're looking to vote on line with your constituents, I think that voting yes for this and passing this would be that option. Thank you.
Next, Senator Cormier.
Common criticism of this is a perception that it's somehow complicated to ensure that there is consent at every step of the process. But I'd like to remind everyone that there's a thing called safety words where you can revoke consent immediately. And so there are ways to ensure that consent can always be revoked at any time, and simple ways. And so I urge everyone to vote in favor of this bill.
Is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for debate? Senator Patron.
I'll be fairly brief. I want to explain my vote, why I will be voting against this bill. Recently, a couple weeks ago, External Affairs leadership had a meeting with Senator May Flexer and Representative Greg Haddad, and this legislation came up. I believe Haddad and Flexer actually are sponsors of the legislation. Is that right? So this bill came up naturally. We talked about it, and I asked them a question. We got into a discussion. I asked them what the effect of this bill would be if two consenting members at the time who were drunk, who had consumed an inappropriate amount of alcohol and were drunk, consented at the time and regretted it in the morning. And I asked what the effect of this legislation would be on that situation. And I think that both Senator Flexer and Representative Haddad had a bit of trouble answering the question, and Representative Haddad eventually responded by saying that in a case like that, where two individuals got drunk and neither one therefore was able to give consent, that, and these are his words, that it would be a race to the police department. And I am uncomfortable with that answer. I'm uncomfortable with legislation that results in a race to the police department with something as serious as sexual assault. I think it's a very serious issue. I think we need to do everything we can to stop it, not just on college campuses, but everywhere that it takes place. But I think that a solution where a race to the police department is a possibility goes too far. So.
Next is Senator Bergman.
All right, I thought that might come up. I talked at length with Lauren Dene, who is the director of the Violence Against Women Protection Program here at UConn. And alcohol is always a tricky situation. I know it's something that we all think of when it comes to consent, but if you're drunk and you get behind the wheel of a car and you crash it into a building, you're still at fault. If you're both drunk and you both consent to sex at that point in time, then you can't. Yes, you might regret it later, but regretted sex is not non-consensual sex. The law still applies just as much in those situations as it does to situations where only one person was inebriated or both people were not inebriated. It's the same law. And also, there's a stipulation in this bill, and I'm sorry that Senator Haddad didn't have the language to give that kind of answer. I think
it's not true what he said, and it's not appropriate the way that he said it also, but the burden of proof in those instances is still the same. You can't regret sex because you're drunk, and then if you're both drunk, then it's still the same situation. And then I wanted to also say that in the bill, it has a stipulation for education, that this kind of, that consent will be taught as an educational component in universities, and that's not something that is very covered in, universities at the moment, so it's still going to be a step in the right direction. People, when they're drunk, will hopefully remember their education and make better choices. It's a step in the right direction. It doesn't get us everywhere we need it to, but it's getting us farther than we are.
Next is Senator Sponzo. Also, I'm going to generally remind people, if you're saying or repeating the same general points, I'm not saying that anybody has done that yet, but just please don't repeat, I guess.
I would like to second everything that Danielle said, also to apologize. Okay. Also to add additional information, which addresses the fact that this bill does not discuss alcohol in a way that asks how many drinks did you have, what kind of drinks did you have, what was your VAC. It addresses alcohol in the way of someone being able to verbally or non-verbally give affirmative consent. So instead of asking a victim how many drinks did you have, it didn't matter how many drinks the person had. If they were inebriated to an extent where they weren't able to give consent, then that is, then it's judged based on that situation. I would also like to say that I don't personally agree with the way that that Senator Haddad responded to your question. I don't think it's valid, and I think that if we could have a continued conversation with them about that. And just because that's the way that it was worded doesn't necessarily mean that that is what the bill actually states. So your support of the bill should not be based on a senator's in-the-moment explanation of it when he may have been able to word it in a better way, and that was a misstep on his part. So I would just like to add that. And thank you for your guys' support.
Next is Senator Pierre. All right. Is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for debate? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of enacting a statement of position on Connecticut Senate Bill 636, an act concerning affirmative consent, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Nay. Any abstentions? Clearly passes. Now we come to the fun point in the evening that you've all been waiting for, a statement of position concerning the legalization of marijuana, House Bill 6703 and 6473. We have our two sponsoring senators.
Is it the most exciting one?
I mean, it might be really boring. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see how it goes, everybody.
A statement of position regarding the legalization of marijuana, HB 6703 and 6473. Whereas the undergraduate student government is charged with protecting and defending the interests of the undergraduate students. Whereas possession of more than half amounts of marijuana in Connecticut is currently a civil penalty, punishable by a fine of up to $1,000 and up to a year in prison. Whereas due to the aid elimination provision of the Higher Education Act of 1965, a drug conviction prevents a student from receiving federal aid, such as Pell Grants, Stafford loans, and other forms of aid. Whereas HB 6703 and HB 6473 would legalize and regulate the sale, growth, and distribution of marijuana in Connecticut. Whereas a 2014 study by the Quinnipiac University, showed that a majority of Connecticut voters believe that marijuana should be legal. A 2014 study by the Pew Research Center showed that a majority of Americans believe marijuana should be legal. Whereas precedent for the legalization of marijuana has been established in 4 states and the District of Columbia. Whereas legalizing marijuana could generate revenue for the state, much of which could be allocated to the budget of the University of Connecticut. Whereas it would be beneficial for the student body if the University of Connecticut Police Department was able to reprioritize resources from enforcing marijuana laws to preventing and prosecuting violent crime.
Therefore, be it resolved that the University of Connecticut undergraduate student government fully supports marijuana legalization. Be it further resolved that the University of Connecticut undergraduate student government supports Connecticut House Bill 6703 and Connecticut House Bill 6473.
All right, I'll give the motion to Senator Ghanem and the second to Senator Cognato. Are there any questions regarding this legislation? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any debate regarding this legislation? Senator Byrd?
Can I move to limit debate on this topic? The period is 45 minutes.
So 45 minutes? Yeah. That's actually a really long time, so by unanimous consent, can we do 45 minutes? So ordered. 45 minutes of debate. Go.
Hello, everybody. I'm up here today to show my support for this piece of legislation. And that's really all I have to say. Which is surprising, because usually I get up here and say, so yeah, please vote yes.
All right, next, Senator Sponzik.
Hi everyone, I'm back. I just want to remind you all that as senators, our role is to vote in the name of our constituents. I feel personally on this issue I am neutral. However, I feel that when we have such a strong message from the student body, when we have this level of dedication from students who are willing to come here and speak on this issue, this isn't one of those cases where we have more information than the general student body. It's not a case where there's a high level of controversy necessarily. So I'd just like to remind you your role as senators is to vote in the name of your constituents. And that is why I will be voting yes on this. I am the Tower Senator, so one of my constituents is here tonight. And I am going to vote in a way that represents what they want. I've had people come up to me personally and say that they are supportive of this bill. So as a senator, I just like to remind you that that is our responsibility in this governing body.
Thank you. Next, Senator Ali. Bless you.
So I just want to provide some information on how the current marijuana laws disproportionately affect the African American community. And so African Americans have roughly equal usage rates in the country for marijuana, but they're 4 times more likely to be arrested and convicted for marijuana usage. And so that's especially significant for all of us in the room because although I am the ex officio for the ACC, our constituents don't only live in that minority space. They live in different dorms, they're in different classes, they have different buildings that they go to for classes and all that good stuff. So it's important for us to understand this directly is affecting not only how they receive funding for their higher education, but how when they go out into the real world, how they're treated by the Justice Department in the country. And also, once they are convicted, they serve 20% longer sentences than their non-Black counterparts. And so it not only puts them into the system more frequently, but keeps them there for longer and affects their quality of life. Thank you.
Next, Senator Fiedler.
Well, this is a little nerve-wracking. I actually quickly like to respond to a comment that Senator Sponzo made, that we have to vote according to the desires and wants of our constituent populations. As a CLAS senator, I was elected by what should have been a population of, is it 14,000 CLAS students?
No.
11,000.
Yeah. CLAS is actually, yeah.
14,000 students. A lot of students. And that not all of these students share the same views on any given issue. In fact, you could probably take a poll on any major political issue in our generation of CLAS students, and you would not find a common agreement amongst all of them. I'd also like to remind you that I was elected as a member of one of multiple CLAS senators. And so and I would also like to finally say that we were elected to vote according to our opinions. We are elected to vote according to how, we are elected to vote as individuals. That's how a republic works, and for lack of better words, this is a republic. And so when I'm up here saying that I am going to vote no on this legislation, I'm not saying that I'm voting according to the desires of my constituent populations. I'm saying I'm voting according to the opinions that I've been presented with and the facts that I've been given. To make one final point on the bill itself, I am a firm believer that we should not be legalizing marijuana in this state, and that while there are many people who don't support me on this issue, a lot of the support of it comes from the idea that it is a relatively harmless substance. Relatively harmless is a really difficult word for me to understand, particularly because we take such strong viewpoints against other relatively harmless substances such as alcohol regulation in the state. And there's strong pushes, especially with alcohol and tobacco, which are often classified in similar ways to marijuana, to limit these substances and to limit the effect of these substances. We see these substances as a necessary evil in our society, but right now, as we speak, marijuana is currently illegal. We do not need to change that. We do not need to create the situation by which we need to have groups like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or groups that try to limit the effect of cigarettes or alcohol. And so with that in mind, I encourage you guys to vote according to the beliefs that you are given, and not necessarily to always vote according to your constituent populations.
Next, Senator Bylaw.
I'm sorry I didn't get to the question phase. This is kind of directed at the groups. I just wanted some things addressed. So I understand now that if you possess marijuana within, I think, like 1,500 feet of a school, say a high school, say E.O. Smith, and I live in I'm the South Senator, so I think some residents are and some aren't. So it's not really a debate topic, but I just wanted it to be addressed where how this would affect, because I know last week it was asked about the 21 age rule. So it wouldn't affect people under 21 anyway, which some students are. So if you can just talk to the age rule and the distances, and then for our particular purpose, E.O. Smith, and how the legalization of marijuana will affect that sort of cohort.
I'm going to let you yield to them, just so if you're asking for information, you can yield to them. I can even bring, actually, I'll bring the microphone because we don't need it anymore from that. So if they want, okay. And you can come to the front. You can do whatever you want.
So to the question, I should state that I'm not a lawyer and this is not legal advice. Just for the record. But as far as the school zones go, the school zone laws, they apply to criminal convictions for drug convictions. So right now we've decriminalized marijuana for any amount under half an ounce, and the under half an ounce possession charges don't get dealt with according to the mandatory minimum sentencing for drug-free school zones. So if the laws only legalize cannabis possession for people 21 and older, the people who are under 21 who might be caught, possessing it, because I know we deal with that issue with alcohol, they would still not be affected by the drug-free school zone laws, probably, because people who are in possession of alcohol underage are not affected by drug-free school zone laws, even though they're violating, even though it's an infraction, they're violating like a drug law, kind of, because alcohol is a drug. So I guess my answer to you in the short term is that yes, this does benefit students, particularly those people who are living in the school zones, which are South, Buckley, Mansfield apartments, and like a corner of alumni, and actually should be, I think, out of the zone. Is it really not? There's a piece, like a corner, and it's kind of absurd. Like there's some parts of campus that are slightly, like you can go to jail for a minimum of 3 years if you're, like those students, that's ridiculous. Like we just need to save students the absolute trauma of going through the justice system and potentially a mandatory minimum sentence, or if they were in North Campus, they wouldn't have to deal with it. This makes it easier for students. It really does benefit students, particularly in those places. So for the senators who represent those constituencies, I think you also have an additional burden to your constituents, which I think is in your constitution, that you are elected to represent the interests of the students of University the University of Connecticut body, and I think I highlighted it last week that any complacency in that would never be tolerated in this institution. So just a point of information or point of order. It's a point of information. I think.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question?
No, it does. I
Great.
found something else.
You can continue because you still have. You can take it back.
Just good answers. I'm just thinking. So if you're a student under 21 that's coming into UConn, or even if you're already in UConn and under 21 still, if you're convicted above, if you have possessed more than half an ounce, or you still are, it's not. You said it's decriminalized under half an ounce, but if it's more than that, are you still eligible for federal aid? Like
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a drug conviction, and if it's above the decriminalized amount, and you've been convicted for that, and if you're coming from a state where under our decriminalized amount, if you're coming from any other state where it's not decriminalized at all, that's still a drug conviction, and you lose your eligibility for federal financial aid.
Okay.
Yeah. So this would help all the incoming high schoolers who may be possessing over half an ounce over that decriminalized amount, who are in state. So especially if we're looking to benefit future students and to attract more in-state students and out-of-state students too, right? Make this university a safer place and like more inclusive and like, less legal burden for students, so they can focus on their studies and not deal with going to jail, losing federal financial aid. This would benefit those particular people.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Next, we move to Senator Goodnow.
I want to thank Tyler for providing some clarification on that first, and I just want to bring up a couple of points that we talked about last week, and some responses to some of the things that I've heard so far. We can't vote to legalize something that's not already illegal. Unfortunately, it is illegal, but that's why we're here voting to support being legalized. As far as representing constituents or representing the voice of University of Connecticut students, I believe Senator Fiedler voted yes on the wonderful piece of legislation for Yes Means Yes that we voted on before by my friend Senator Sponzo that had 150 students supporting it in the Bar for Beer survey. We got 494 on a petition for supporting marijuana legalization for undergraduate students. So that's kind of important. Also, as far as it being dangerous, I don't have studies here on hand or with me, but I can provide them to people if they wish. A couple of them, one from January, came with pretty startling finding that marijuana was 115 times less dangerous in qualitative and quantitative measures than alcohol use. And some figures that we've also been shown said, I think it was 80% of young people 18 to 30 support legalization, and the Quinnipiac poll from higher than that. The Quinnipiac poll from this week showed that 63% in Connecticut support legalization, which is up a whole 10% from last year. So this is a movement that's been coming from the heart of Connecticut and young people in Connecticut, and I think it's pretty self-evident that where we should be voting on this. So I encourage you guys to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Next, Senator Gopal.
Hello. I just heard something said up here that I thought kind of rubbed me in a certain way. And I just wanted to say that if you believe that voting along your personal beliefs in Senate is the right way to go about it, I just want to point out that no constituency will ever agree completely on any topic presented here ever. So if you want to say there are people in my constituency that don't support this, I think you just have to try to get as informed as you can about what your constituency wants and then try to vote based on that. I agree that we should vote based on information that we've been presented with, and I think a benefit of us being in this governing body is that we are presented with more information than the average student that goes here. But we should also remember that that should apply to issues which the general student body is not generally informed of, that internal affairs within USG or more administrative affairs that we vote on. This is an issue that almost every student on this campus is aware of, and many came out today to support, which I applaud. And advocacy, again, is something we've talked about, advocacy and transparency as a governing unit. and I don't think advocacy is voting along personal beliefs. So become as informed as possible of what your constituency wants and vote along that. And the mentality of why change existing laws, I think, is apathy, and that's not something I can stand for personally. I think taking initiative is very important as a student leader, and apathy is just something that I just don't understand the mentality behind that. Thank you.
Next, Senator Bylaw.
Good evening, everyone. So first, I'd just like to say, as someone who does not partake in recreational use of marijuana, that I still believe in full legalization of marijuana. I was unsure if our student government should take a stance for or against this legislation, but then I thought hard about it and I realized that if there's ever going to be a change, it needs to start here, it needs to start somewhere. So I figured, why not start now? Legalization of marijuana can provide economic growth and, most importantly, jobs all across the country, but for our state of Connecticut. And in the number 2 state where people are leaving to go to other states, this will bring people back to Connecticut. This will put more people to work, and it'll help Connecticut push the rest of the country into the 21st century. So please vote yes.
Next, Senator Myers. Senator Riff.
How's everybody doing? I'll try not to take up too much time. So, for those of you who know me, you probably know that I'm incredibly attractive. Humor me. And for those of you who know me very well, you know that I love smoking cigarettes. Now, for all intents and purposes, I probably waited until I was 18 to start smoking. I did it responsibly, I did it legally. Now, the simple fact is that if you go around to most people around a college campus, they'll tell you that smoking is bad, that it's dangerous, that it causes lung cancer, that it causes several other diseases which can and will kill you. And several doctors will tell you the same exact thing. But I still love it, and it's legal. Now, if you go around asking people about marijuana, I can tell you, a great deal of them will tell you it's fine, what's the big issue? And many doctors will tell you that it has a lot of benefits, medically. I've had a lot of loved ones who've had cancer. Now, there have been those who have not used marijuana because it was illegal, and they've suffered through it tremendously. And I've had a lot of relatives who did use marijuana during cancer, illegally, and it was much easier. To address Senator Fiedler's point, I want to say that I do the opposite. I don't take my personal opinion into consideration, or at least I try not to, especially in matters like this. To be perfectly honest, I don't agree with drug use. I never have, and I probably will not for some time if I ever choose to differ with my opinions. I believe in keeping your state of consciousness. I know that sounds stupid, but it's true. But when I went around asking my friends, my constituents, what did they think? Well, they were all on their way to go smoke weed, so I figured they probably voted yes. I'd like to say that I'm going to vote with my constituents. I am going to support the marijuana bill. Thank you.
Senator Hughes. Also, I can't take a point on the content, but that was one of the best things I've ever heard ever said at this podium in 3 years. So well done.
Okay, I'd also like to start with a question because that passed really quickly and I didn't realize what was happening. So, if this largest bill is passed, will marijuana be available both for recreational and medical use?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have a problem with it being either or, but I have a problem with the overlapping categories. So someone came up here and made a point that it can be used to treat depression and supplement mental health. It can be used to treat and ease the pain of certain diseases. Those are all very valid points, and I understand that, and I completely sympathize with them. But when you have something that's being legalized and used for recreational purposes at the same time, that means that people can go and purchase this privately, and maybe they have depression, or maybe they're suffering with certain diseases, and they're self-medicating, and they're not receiving professional help. And that really bothers me, that like it could, you can answer it. Hold on, I have a few more points. This is not an alternative to mental health services. It's not an alternative to actual drugs that have been tested in labs for treating these diseases. If anything, the use of a recreational substance to treat medical conditions is substance abuse, just like alcohol. Plenty of people use alcohol, and they use it to numb the pain of depression or anything. Cigarette use, people certainly enjoy doing that, and that's quite addictive too. Coffee, those were other substances that were brought up that helps you feel less tired. Like, they're all medical benefits to all of these things, and they're not necessarily correct, and they all do. Smoking marijuana has just as many negative effects to your lungs and to your body. Maybe not as many, but it does. Smoking anything is going to negatively affect your lungs in some capacity. And at the end of the day, I mean, I'm not going to do it, but if you're going to use the reason of medical treatment, it should not be also for recreational use. And I can't support legislation that might be used later to support the generalization of like an overlapping category, because I'm just not comfortable with that. You can respond.
Well, technically, okay, part of the rules, you can provide information that is not currently being addressed, but you cannot debate.
I have a question that
Yeah.
Go
yes.
ahead. So to keep this as informative as possible to read the bylaws. So something that we haven't addressed is that SSDP works closely with the currently established medical marijuana community.
Right.
And many of the business owners and the patients have expressed that opening up a legal recreational market will actually help increase the efficacy and the I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but the robust nature of the medical program. So I can understand concerns for legal regulated like recreational, but if you do agree with wanting a robust medical program, most of the industry, the people that we work closely with, agree that a legal recreational program is part of that approach. And I think that that's information this is totally like cool with bylaws.
I mean, well,
Can I just continue my point?
you can, because technically you're yielding to provide information, so you can take that info. Yeah, sorry.
Right. I understand that, but still, there are going to be people that maybe they develop this habit when they're 21 and they develop depression and they never realize it and they never get help because of the use of this substance. And there are going to be people that self-medicate and that are not going to come out and say anything, and their friends might never notice because they're using these substances. And I'm just not comfortable supporting that. And I'm sorry, but yes, that's how I feel.
All right, next is Senator Crowley.
Oh my God.
Oh wow, this is terrifying. Okay. I don't think so. Okay, so like personally I'm kind of indifferent on all of this, like everyone's made valid points. The reason I'm gonna choose to support it is the reason actually you brought up, so I don't know how to pronounce your name. Yeah. How do you pronounce it? Hadia, because I think that everyone's gonna do whatever they want, people are gonna smoke, people are not. But definitely I think everyone should have a chance to go to college, and college should be affordable. And if you do get caught, like let's say you get caught 17 years old smoking weed or doing something bad, and that gets put on your record, and then you go to jail. And I don't know if you guys have read statistics about people that go to prison, like it's really hard to get out of there. I don't know if you read like the Snapchat on the back, like you know you can scroll through in Cosmo, love reading that in class. they had a very fascinating article about women who go to prison and the rates of them getting out are worse than men because they get out and they have no support systems where like men have them already in place, kind of. I don't know if that makes sense. So like I think the biggest concern is that, wow, I don't know how to say this. Like everyone should have a chance to go to college, and I don't think if someone makes a stupid mistake when they're younger, it should prohibit them. And we are a state university, and there's such a diverse population in Connecticut. Found that out, not from Connecticut, but found it so diverse here, which I did not know. And if someone does get caught, I don't think that should prohibit them from getting an education, furthering their life.
Next, Senator Puglisi. Oh, you were on there from a while ago. You yield. So next, Senator Johnny. Chairperson Johnny, I'm so sorry.
I have a question as well. So alcohol is legal on campus, but there's limits as to how much you can have in your dorm room, how much you can drink it, and when and whom can drink it, right? So if this passes, are there going to be regulations on campus where this can be smoked and such things like that?
I can even answer that. It will, basically the way that it would go, if this were legalized in the state of Connecticut, then the university would then adopt policies relating to it. So it would likely go under similar scrutiny in terms of the way that they created the alcohol policies. I don't know what those would look like, but they would be determined by the University of Connecticut. Or nothing in the bill thus far states any mandate on universities.
Okay. I'm a little bit torn on this because personally I'm against this, but representatively, if you're representing your constituency, you take that into consideration, obviously. But I would just like to pose a question that if the regulations are not appropriate or are not passed in a way from the university that you feel comfortable, would you be okay in an environment and a culture where marijuana is smoked recreationally outside of dorm rooms and throughout campus? And the other thing is that, yes, it could have positive benefits because the way I see this is that it is a movement of our generation, and that could benefit incoming students and incoming freshmen. But I think there's an aspect to it that can discourage prospective students in the future. So just two things to think about.
Next, Senator, I don't know your last name, but Will. Man. Oh, he whispered. He's fun. But no, come on. Connor whispered to me.
So hi everyone, my name is William Meng and I'm the ex officio senator for the Asian American Cultural Center. And just because I'm relatively new here, and I've heard the word constituents being used a lot, and kind of my problem with that is I know that there's representatives here that are in support of this bill. I believe there's so many more constituents outside of this room right now that we haven't really reached out to, and we haven't gotten their opinions on this issue. And I don't want to vote just because there's some people here representing their opinions, and I thank you for being here. But I feel like if we're really trying to represent our constituents, then we need to get the entire population and get the entire student body's opinion. And I just feel like that's something that we haven't exactly done yet. Inform me if I'm wrong, but I just like a little more time, or maybe like a little more clarity, whether there has been like movements or like polls or anything being done to reach out to the students that haven't been actively, spoken to any of the senators in this room. Thank you.
All right, next is Senator Ghanem, then Kundu. We have 18 minutes left. Yeah.
Just to that point about talking to your constituents, we did send out a petition to see if people agree with this. We got 494 signatures. It was an online petition, so it was open to everyone. And the other thing is, when we pass statements of position, like we just passed a statement of position on affirmative consent, we didn't go around and poll the entire university about that, but we passed it because we know it's the right thing to do. And so we have reached out with this statement, but I just wanted to point that
Next, Senator Kundu.
Hey everyone, this is my first time going up to the podium at Senate for the first time, I believe, since fall. Mostly because I feel that the issue at hand is a pretty divisive one, and it's definitely one that affects most of the students here on campus at UConn. Since the legislation was brought up at caucus last Wednesday, I've talked to a lot of my constituents, and I found that a lot of people are interested in this. They've asked me about it. They've given me their opinions about it, and from talking to them, this is what the conclusion that I've come to so far. I feel that when, as USG, we are setting a statement of position, what we're communicating to other people is that what we agree with is what a majority of the students at UConn also agree with, or this is something that an overwhelmingly significant portion of the student body here are in favor of. However, what we need to consider is if this really holds true for the constituents that we are representing, and although I do recognize that a lot of people are in favor of this, what I also realize is that a lot of people are also equally against this. But however, this also depends from one part of campus to another. While the situation in, let's say, Shippey, which I represent at USG, might be in one way, it might be different in, let's say, Towers or any other parts of campus. No one part of campus is the same as any other. So while you do vote on this issue, I urge you to think what your constituents would feel about this and how you personally feel about this issue, and try to find a compromise between the two. Definitely take your constituents into consideration, and definitely I commend SSDP on coming here, supporting their legislation, and if all other student organizations on campus advocated for their positions as strongly as they did, we would have a lot of other issues moving forward in similar ways. Thank you.
Next, Senator Banu, because I still need to figure out how to pronounce your last name, and I feel really bad about that.
It's okay.
It does not mean I don't care about you. You're just newer. I'm so sorry.
Okay. I would like you guys to think about legalizing marijuana from a, maybe not from a college student standpoint, but from a standpoint of people of different races, people of different demographics, say upper, middle, lower class, etc. The prison systems are really messed up. Racial disparities in prisons are, as Hadia mentioned before, 4 to 1. It's, no, not 4 to 1, I'm sorry. Could you repeat what it was?
So 4 times more to be arrested and convicted, and they serve a term that 20% longer than non-black.
Yeah, and this is for non-violent drug crimes. We're not talking about like pushing heroin. We're not talking about drug cartels. Like this happens to just everyday people. And after so you serve your time. I agree. People do illegal things. They should serve their time. After serving their time, they're denied public housing. For people who are of lower class, who do get involved in non-violent drug crimes such as marijuana, being denied public housing is a big deal. The prison systems are like a cycle. Once you get in, you can't really get out, and helping legalize, supporting legalizing marijuana could keep these individuals from falling into that cycle, and I think that's something that you guys should consider. Thank you.
Next, Senator Byrd.
I couldn't help myself. First of all, I want to thank SSDP for being here. I think you guys have great organizational skills, and you guys proved that tonight, both with your petition and getting so many people here. So thank you for that. I just wanted to say, I think kind of anecdotally, I think most of us in this room understand that the vast majority of students support the legalization of marijuana. I don't have statistical proof for this specific university's student population, but I think it just seems common sense. And to Senator Fiedler's point, there are two, okay, this is my political science coming out. There are two main models of representation, the trustee model and the delegate model. Normally, I'm a trustee model. I think that I was elected to serve the community in the way I think best. And now I'm representing them, so I make the decision. I'm in the meetings, I read the legislation, and I make the decision based on what I think is best. I think the delegate model, however, is a very responsible model to use in this situation. When such a vast majority of, I've talked to very few people on campus that don't support this, and I talked to a lot of people about it, especially up in Hilltop. I think it would be irresponsible to go against what the vast majority of your constituents believe, especially in this situation. So I would keep that in mind, and I again urge you to vote yes.
All right. Now, because we're coming very, very close to our time and everybody who is on the speakers list has already spoken, I'm limiting any comments to 1 minute. So next is Senator Cognato.
Tell me what do you got?
Oh, you've already gone.
Okay, so I just want to start by addressing Senator Hughes' point because I think it was very, very important. USG, SSDP, the UConn community in general does not condone drug abuse, plain and simple. Mental health is extremely important, especially to this university, as is the proper treatment of all medical conditions. We don't suggest stay home and smoke pot instead of going and seeing a doctor. Absolutely not. Never. Thank you for bringing that point up. It's very important. As far as the negative effects go, marijuana does not contain the sort of chemicals and carcinogens you're going to find in cigarettes, and it doesn't even have to be smoked. It can be ingested through edible products and co-concentrates. For smoking, the university policy in most places I've seen doesn't allow someone to smoke within 30 to 20 feet of the buildings. So saying people will be standing outside smoking, it sort of just enforces this negative stigma about marijuana that kind of discounts the economic benefits it provides to Connecticut, as well as in the areas of equal justice, as our fellow senators have pointed out. More students showed up here for public comment and supporting in the debate here. This time limit is very important, so I think it's clear to see that there's a cultural movement, a student movement for this. Vote yes. Thank you very much. All right.
Next, oh God, more people. So Senator Bergman. You can, because you haven't spoken, you can, but try to keep it to a minute. She hasn't spoken yet.
I just want to say on that point too about people can self-medicate with alcohol. You can self-medicate with a lot of drugs that are easily accessible, and I get that it's bad, but people still have the right to access something like marijuana and be able to control what they do put in their body. And yes, it's not good if people do self-medicate, but it's possible already. And should they choose to, or should they choose to use marijuana, they shouldn't be, they should lose their financial aid at UConn. If they shouldn't go to jail and be entered into the system for something for that reason when we already have drugs like alcohol that are also legal, perfectly legal and regulated.
Next, Senator Ali. You're good. You don't have to rush too. But yeah, I mean, you still do have to.
So I think the cool thing about things being legal is that you don't have to do them.
Taking away from our time.
So when people are talking about some of my constituents might not want this, nobody's gonna point marijuana in the face and do this now, it's legal, now you guys have to do it. And I also want to talk more about the racial disparities and what that means exactly. And so the prison industrial system is one in such that when you enter prison, it's a privately owned business in which you are doing labor for little to no payment. And so I hate to be the black girl throw around the word slavery, but slavery. So it's a big problem for me, for minority communities to then be disproportionately investigated and affected by an unfair system and then entering a system where they're then extorted for their labor.
Senator Hughes.
I support recreational use, or I support medical use. There is no other drug that can be used recreationally. You don't go to a doctor and they say, okay, here, take a shot of alcohol every day, even though Doug did it on House of Cards, but it's not okay. And then there's no medical drug that can be used recreationally, and there's a reason for that. And it can't be either or. At least in my mind, it cannot be either or.
Next, Chairperson Johnny, and she's rounding out the list. Anybody else who wants to be recognized? Oh, Senator Fiedler, I guess.
A lot of what's been spoken about have been medical benefits, and I'd like to know if mental health is on board, or if you know their stance on this legislation being on board.
Oh, counseling and mental health services?
Yeah. So you don't know whether they'd be on board with this?
No.
No, you didn't.
She was just asking.
Yeah.
Okay, next, Senator Fiedler.
I'd like to quickly take care of a couple of things while I'm up here. One is that there is grace in voting no, there's not apathy in voting no. The second piece that I'd like to say is that I am fully supportive of an expansion of the use of medical marijuana. I know that from experiences within my family that medical marijuana is actually incredibly useful. And I also support a revamping of the judicial system by which we would instead send people who violate the marijuana laws to rehabilitation centers, not prisons. This is not that law. And that's why I'm not voting for it.
Is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for debate? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of enacting a statement of position concerning the legalization of marijuana, House Bill 6703 and 6473, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Nay. Abstentions? 1, 2, 3. Clearly passed. Okay. Oh yes, thank you very, very much for being so respectful and staying for this whole ceremony. We very much appreciate when people come and come back anytime, because we'll love to have you. I mean, not anytime, but you know, sometimes. But all right, so now moving on, we move into an act concerning the speaking rights of the judiciary. Also, you're all free to go. You don't have to stay. This will be boring. Not the senators. Not the senators. Yeah. Okay. All right. An act concerning the speaking rights of the judiciary.
Alright, so an act concerning the speaking rights of the judiciary. Whereas the constitutionality of certain issues has been brought to the attention in recent meetings of Senate. Whereas the judiciary had speaking rights during Senate until 2012, when an abuse of power was identified and Senate subsequently removed those aforementioned speaking rights. Whereas only 3 members of the judiciary must serve on a hearing panel if an appeal is raised. Whereas the input of the judiciary regarding constitutionality bears clear merit to the decision-making capabilities of the undergraduate student government. Therefore, be it resolved, a member of the judiciary may be recognized by the speaker to provide an impartial clarification of the constitutionality of the matter at hand. Let it further be resolved, the Chief Justice has speaking rights in meetings of Senate, but in the case of his or her absence, speaking rights will be given to his or her designee. Let it further be resolved, all speaking occurrences must be worded in the following format. The Chief Justice or designee interpretations of the Constitution dictates blank as per, and then you have to institute a specific line of the Constitution, bylaw, or Robert's rule. I'd like to make a friendly amendment off the bat, gender neutral.
Okay. Since, where is that? Actually, it doesn't even have to be by unanimous consent because you haven't motioned yet. Where is it? By they or designate. Yeah. Okay, so any gender non-neutral things are going to become gender neutral things. It's not even an order, it's just a thing. Persons. Yeah. Okay. Doesn't matter. We can basically understand that when you vote on this legislation. Now, you done reading it? Yep. Is there a motion to enact this legislation? I'll give the motion to Lavoie and the second to Gopal. That's a great time. Motion by Lavoie, second by Gopal. Are there any questions regarding this legislation? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any debate regarding this legislation? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of enacting an act concerning the speaking rights of the judiciary, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Abstentions? Abstain. Clearly passes. All right, now, actually, we have a piece of legislation that's on the agenda, but it was, well, it was supposed to be on the agenda, but because it's not currently, it's a simple piece of legislation from, from Senator Byrd. By unanimous consent, can we do it because it's a statement of position? Yes. And this is a statement of position regarding the importance of submitting textbook requirements on time, because we like lengthy titles here at the undergraduate student government.
Yes, we do. Okay, so can I give some context?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so last semester we passed legislation to form an exploratory committee about open source textbooks. By the way, that committee is formed. Me, myself, Tim, and Connor Ryan sit on that committee. And we are taking steps to try to implement open source textbooks as well as save students money at the co-op. And one of the things we decided to do was submit this piece of legislation to this body, and hopefully you guys pass it. If this passes, the plan is that the library will release a press release tomorrow morning, if not Friday, to Hartford Courant and other news organizations about this. So, yeah, here we go. So a statement of position regarding the importance of submitting textbook requirements on time. Whereas the undergraduate student government is charged with advocating on behalf of the student body, whereas textbooks are an integral part of the learning process. Whereas according to the Higher Education Opportunities Act, the university must provide prices and ISBN numbers for required texts for every class listed on the online registration database. Whereas in order for the university to comply with this law, faculty must provide this information to the registrar's office before online class registration starts on March 23rd. Whereas if faculty inform the co-op bookstore of their textbook requirements by the deadline set by the co-op for the following semester, students can receive up to 50% of the retail price of the book if it is the same version as will be used in the following semester. Whereas the provost's office has repeatedly reminded faculty of the need to submit their textbook requirements on time. Whereas if professors comply with these rules and submit their textbook requirements for the following semester on time, students will save money and will be able to make a more informed decision about what classes they want to take and the potential costs associated with those classes. Therefore, be it resolved that the undergraduate student government of the University of Connecticut urges faculty to submit their textbook requirements on time to both the registrar's office and to the university co-op bookstore. Before you motion, there are two controversies.
By unanimous consent, can we fix grammatical errors?
Oh yeah, it hasn't been motioned. So second clause, textbooks are an integral part. And then the fourth clause, in order for the university to comply. Anybody else see? Repeated delete. Oh yes. And whereas the provost's office has repeated. Thank you guys.
Scroll down, there's one more.
And there's one more.
Students, whereas if professors comply with these rules, students, plural. Okay.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I did this very quickly today, as this needs to get out for tomorrow. Okay.
All right, is there a motion to enact this legislation? Motion by Byrd, second by Gopal. Are there any questions regarding this legislation? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any debate? Do you really need to debate it? Is it going to pass anyway?
Probably, but someone asked me to.
Okay, just go.
Tim wanted to say that he really, really supports this bill. That's all he has to say.
Is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for debate? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of enacting a statement of position regarding the importance of submitting textbook requirements on time, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? Abstain? Clearly passes. Now, now we move into discussion. First, President Sargent. And so.
I just want to congratulate everybody on the debating. We had almost all the cultural centers get up and speak today, so I want to thank you for representing your constituents and all the members of this body who got up and spoke. I've never seen some of you get up and speak, and the way you present yourself was very professional and eloquent, so I applaud you for doing that. And it kind of goes back to the conversation that we had several weeks ago about making sure that we are promoting a civil engagement with among each other. This was a perfect example of that. So I want to wish you guys a safe and happy spring break, and I look forward to a successful 6 weeks. So that's not really a discussion, but if you want a discussion, we can.
No. Is there anybody else? Oh yeah, next, Senator Porcello.
All right, I'll make this quick because I know it's been a while. This is like kind of a question, but also discussion, I guess. I brought it up at the office earlier today, and I didn't really get a great answer, so I'm kind of just throwing it out there. Maybe someone can let me know. But I think a big part of what we do in USG is based on trying to be as transparent as possible. And the best place to do that would be the election. And I don't want to like call anyone out if this is anyone. I don't know who's responsible for this. But like, I would love if on our website, relatively soon after the election, we could post the election results. Because I'm in USG and I have no idea if both constitutional amendments passed. I have no idea what the results were of the votes on the fees. And I have no idea what the individual breakdown was for the senators. I just think it's information that we should know. And I've heard like, oh, you can ask, but I don't think it should have to be that. I think it should just be like a link on the website. So I don't know. If anyone has any information, I'd love to hear it.
Okay. President-elect Convoy, I'll give you.
I will say this, but I might be able to get it wrong. I believe it's because of the runoff. Is that correct? That it's usually posted, all of this is usually posted, but because of the runoff, that is why it's been delayed, correct?
Yes. And also we just need a finalization of the trustee budget.
But it will go on.
Yeah, I sent that to Christine Wilson, so she should be making a public appearance.
All right, next we move into announcements. Is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for announcements? First, Senator Hughes, then Chairperson Kugler, then Chairperson Johnny, then Senator Cagnato, then Katie Blumen.
Okay, Rachel mentioned briefly getting other committees to donate shoes, but I haven't actually asked anyone, so it was just an idea. You were my committee chair, so I was bringing it. Anyways, so Walk a Mile in Her Shoes is going to be a fantastic event, and the whole point of the event is men are literally supposed to wear women's shoes and walk as much as they possibly can. We understand. But we have to specially order these shoes from a company that makes them for drag shows, and they're about $40 a piece. Spring Weekend is buying us about 10 pairs, but if any committees can find it in their budgets to donate a few pairs of these shoes to our event, it would be great and much appreciated. Maybe we could convince Mark to put a pair on.
Yeah. I thought you were about to say 14, and I was like, okay, Mark. But you can also get very large women's shoes at Payless, in case anybody was wondering. But next, Chairperson Kugler.
Just a reminder that anyone who's testifying, please meet quickly out in the hall after this.
Next, Chairperson Johnny.
Something that I'd like to point out that I talked to Kevin about, and he got a kick out of this one, is that at COSGA I was talking to some of the other speakers, and the way they run their Senate is tight knit. Like one of the speakers was like, the senators were using their phone too much, so she had little boxes with everyone's name, and everyone had to drop off their phone at the beginning of Senate, and they got it back when Senate was over, and that's how attendance was taken. So I'd just like to say for the future, if Kevin tells you, to put away your laptops or things like that. I'm guilty of this too, absolutely. But just keep that in mind, that the way other senates are run, if you heard some of it, and I can bring some facts back if you guys would like, but just keep that in mind next time he asks you to follow some type of rule or kind of tries to enforce it.
Next, Senator Pignata.
Hey, thanks everybody for voting yes before. Kevin has yet to send it out. I know he's probably really, really busy, but the PR director and I came up with the guidelines for the guidelines as well as a flexible template for the USG newsletter. The deadlines for submitting things like that, all senators can submit, you don't have to, but there are also going to be committee reports, a report of the president, report of the speaker, and some other things in there. It's all in the guidelines. It's going to be sent out to you. The deadline is the Friday of spring break, so nobody will be here sort of to remind you of those things. So just look out for that email when Kevin gets around to sending it out. I'm sure he will soon. And you can email. There's an email in there for public relations, or if I'm around or she's around in the office, ask questions. But we want the first one to be really, really good, and it should be out the Tuesday we come back from spring break. So look out for that email.
Next, Chief Justice Blue.
All right, just in response to Stephen Porcello's question, I just wanted to let you guys know that the referendum did pass. It was about 84%, I think. And also, I'm going to reiterate this again and again. Please, if you're in CLES, please vote in the runoff election tomorrow. Please tell your friends if they're in CLES and use social media to get the word out to the student body if they are in that constituency.
Senator Meng.
So in addition to being the ex officio senator for the Asian American Cultural Center, I'm also a part of the Pan Asian Council in ASAC, and that's a group of student leaders with one representative from every single Asian American Cultural Center affiliated with Corey. We all meet every single Wednesday and we talk about related issues going on campus, as well as just different events that are going on. And one of the things that we're doing right now is we are part of Ignite, which is a donor-based fundraiser. And how the fundraiser works is essentially whoever gets the most amount of donors wins, and the first place prize is $10,000 in addition to the amount that is raised during the fundraiser. And so PAC, we're in charge of a lot of events within ASAC. We're part of a conference called Impact, which is identifying the missing power of Asian Americans in Connecticut. We're in charge of hosting Asian Night. We got the candlelight vigil for the Chapel Hill shooting started, and so there's a lot of events that ASAC and PAC funds, and so just any donors, any donations would be really appreciated. And I'll link the Facebook group tonight, but just $5 could really turn into $10,000, which really means a lot to our cultural center. So thank you.
Next, Comptroller Ron.
Okay, so tomorrow, 7 to 9. We have the workshop. I need 2 senators that aren't part of the funding board to volunteer to be there tomorrow to take notes and make sure that it's going smoothly so that we can get some improvements for the next year. So 2 senators, raise your hands.
Senator Sponzo. Senator Electric.
7 to 9. Anyone else? Okay, cool.
Okay, next, Chairperson Convoy / President-elect Convoy.
I didn't say it's my report, but thank you guys for coming out and voting for me. I appreciate it. Sorry, I'm trying to think of a witty comment to make about being uncontested, but it wasn't funny, so I'm just not gonna say it. No, it's not. Anyway, point is transition period. So as soon as elections are over, we immediately have to go into getting the exec board ready for triad. That is due by March 31st. Did anyone not get my email about chair positions? Yeah, I was gonna just make sure I got the emails first. Okay, can you guys contact me and let me know and I'll forward it out to you? So those are gonna be due March 20th, I believe, which is the Friday of spring break. So I gave you guys spring break to fill it out. I'm asking for a letter of intent. The breakdown for all of the positions and how me and Adam are gonna set up exec next year is all set up and attached to the email. Just so you guys a breakdown in person, there will be no staff next year. There will be no chief of staff next year. Me and Adam will have 2 separate, they're called executive assistants, but the way to really think about them is the person working with Adam is going to be looking internally, the person working with me is going to be looking externally. So just if you're looking at your interests and what you're thinking of doing next year and you have any questions, feel free to ask us, but those are new positions. They will not be in charge of any staff, and they won't be reporting to exec either. They're going to be working with me and Adam. Also, programs director will be sitting on exec, so there's no staff in that org, and membership will not be a position that will fall under the vice president's responsibilities, and PR director will also be the same as programs sitting on exec. No, they're technically appointed positions, just like chief of staff. So it's like the same role as chief of staff, but no staff and like not. Yes. So if you chose to be one of those positions, you cannot be a senator as well. Yes. It's actually you can ask me after. So we don't.
If technically it's announcements, this would be
March
discussion.
20th, everyone, and then the interviews will go the next week.
All right. Is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for announcements? Senator Lavoie.
So, academic affairs home event this past Monday called Academic Affairs, and we're going to the results of that tomorrow, so anyone wants to come, 6 o'clock, also some conference, and we're talking about the results of that.
All right. Anybody else? Don't forget the banquet is April 11th. I expect you to all be there. And adjourned at 9:44.